Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у щах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Ніхто води всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1184 of the War News Stream. And we have massive news yet again tonight. We are seeing today that Russia's deployed forces in Moscow, the capital city, under Ukrainian attack. Also, we have seen Putin announce the start of a new border military operation, which will be totally successful this time compared to the last couple of times. And also, North Korea's naval destroyer has sunk in the port, and we finally have satellite imagery to back that up and show you the tarps over their prized naval destroyer. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world, as we have been able to hear that significant developments have been going on in the Moscow area overnight, as Ukrainian drones in the hundreds have rained down hellfire and destruction throughout the entirety of the area of Moscow, hitting such significant targets as Patriot Park near Kubinka, as well as other significant military targets and critical infrastructure points throughout the entirety of the capital city, and also the largest city in the Russian Federation simultaneously. Air bases have been hit all the way at Ivanovo, and not only that, we've also been able to hear of more drone attacks that have been occurring even as south as Ryazan, as we were able to confirm that the Ryazan oil refinery has been hit heavily overnight by Ukrainian drones and is on fire, according to NASA-firmed satellites. We even got to see that some commercial airline passengers in Russia apparently were able to follow the drone into Moscow as they filmed it out of the window of their aircraft. Meanwhile, outside the Russian Federation and outside of the area of the drone attacks in the city of Moscow itself, it appears that an emergency situation has been declared by the Russian Federation, as Russian troops have now been deployed to the streets of Moscow, erecting impromptu military barricades throughout the entirety of the city and demanding papers and identification information from citizens passing by. We have also been able to hear that simultaneously at that very moment that the military was rolling out and being deployed into the capital city of Moscow, Vladimir Putin came on a national TV and announced a new Russian offensive into the Chernihiv, Sumy, and Kharkiv Oblasts, declaring that the Russian Federation intends on creating a sanitary zone along the border, much like they attempted to years ago, which ended in complete failure in the Vovchansk offensive at the beginning of 2023. We have also been able to hear significant developments outside of that around the world, as we have been able to see satellite footage confirming the failed launch of the Chongjin destroyer of the People's Korean Navy, which we were able to hear about yesterday through official state media in North Korea. But today, satellite footage has unveiled the failed launch of the Chongjin destroyer at the Chongjin port, just a few miles south actually from a gulag, the Camp 25 gulag. And it does appear that at this point, heads are going to be rolling. The vessel has been covered with a tarp in the meantime to try and hide it from satellite photography, but the disaster can clearly be seen even with the tarp trying to cover over the shame of North Korea. Meanwhile, we've also been able to see that the Chinese have shown some footage today of their brand new J-35 in flight, with some people saying that it's the first appearance of the J-25, the J-35 in the world, and it appears that it may have entered serial production. We actually have information that already entered serial production a while ago. We're going to be dispelling the claims that have been made across the internet today. We have also been able to hear some additional news that the Islamic Republic of Iran is now publicly stating that any attacks conducted by the State of Israel against the Islamic Republic of Iran will be viewed by the Islamic Republic as attacks that are also fostered and supported by the United States of America. And we have not been able to hear an official response yet to these statements by the U.S. Department of State or the U.S. Secretary of State, but these statements are largely showing that once again there is a hostile footing that Iran and the United States are beginning to take. The Ukrainian armed forces have also been able to hold back the Russian Federation today along all front lines inside of Ukraine, although we were able to hear that simultaneously the losses were quite low tonight, with only 900 Russian soldiers being wounded and killed, and one of the first days where we've ever seen that the casualty report has gotten that low, at least in recent months. But beyond that, we have a huge amount of news to cover for y'all. It is a fairly significant day, and funnily enough, it actually is a significant day as far as the news coverage on the war in Ukraine is concerned, which may make some viewers quite happy, considering that it's once again the largest thing happening in any given day, at least for right now. Moving on from that and into the Russian Federation, we have been able to see some significant developments within the area of the city of Moscow and throughout the entirety of the Western Russian Federation again that is showing us that things are not going exactly to plan. At least that's a very political way of putting it. Things are going badly for the Russians at this point inside of the regions of Western Russia. We were able to see that more Ukrainian drone attacks have been launched throughout the region. The Russians claim that they shot down 500 Ukrainian drones across 10 regions, which is a bit of a stretch, considering that if that was the reality, the Ukraine just launched the largest drone attack in world history. Beat out everyone, as a matter of fact. So we are largely doubting the claim, of course, by the Russian Federation that 485 drones were shot down, because we were able to confirm that drones were also hitting their targets, meaning that the actual number of Ukrainian drones present in the attack would have to be far larger than 500. So with that in mind, we're not believing that number, but we are able to confirm that a drone attack did occur over 10 regions, and we also were able to confirm that there were some hits. In the meantime, however, everyone was filming all of the drones as they were flying over. We were able to confirm that a few Ukrainian drones did end up getting shot down in the process of making it to Moscow and also making it to the other targets, which would end up seeing the Ukrainian ire devastate them, at least over the course of the day. We can see here the Ukrainian drone flying over. There it is right there. This is the normal view from the iPhone that was filming. This is the 8 times zoom to let y'all see the exact drone up there in the sky.
Держи, 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 держи. Отпускай, давай!
And we see that the Russians are now sending up some sort of an interceptor drone. And it appears... It appears that they may have missed it right there, at least for that moment. But the Russian drone is still attempting to intercept the Ukrainian one, and it looks like it was a successful hit, knocking the drone out of its flight path and making it spiral to the earth below. One of the few Ukrainian drones we were able to confirm was taken down by the Russians over the course of the attack.
You know what's very interesting is that technology right there was actually developed by a U.S. company. I know the company, it's Anduril, that developed that, and now the Russians are trying to knock it off, which is predictable.
It is a pretty predictable thing, and also a real sad thing for the Russians that they pretty much have to rip people off, kind of like the Chinese do, to have any good tech. But we also got to see that the drone attack was quite large in size. To give you all an idea of how voluminous it was, we actually got to see that this commercial airline passenger flying into the Moscow area was actually followed along, at least on their flight, by a Ukrainian drone. You can actually see it right there. It's right below them, about 1,000 feet away. About a half-mile off, but they were actually able to film it. It's right out the window, and it's also flying to Moscow right with them. There it is.
That's not reassuring whatsoever. That would make you want to probably divert your flight, I think. I don't think you'd want to keep flying in.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. There has been an unfortunate incident where there is a Ukrainian drone right out of the window. It's like, man, it's like, if you look at your right window, you can see the destruction of our country coming in right below us. But meanwhile, we were able to see that a decent amount of targets actually ended up getting hit throughout quite a wide swath around the Moscow area. The furthest southerly hit that we have been able to confirm so far was the hit at the Ryazan refinery, which has once again become a target for Ukrainian drones. We were able to see that it appears that there was a fire within the central area of the facility of the Ryazan refinery, which would be about right here, near to what appears to be the main condenser facility, which is an important part of the refining process. And there also appears to be a fire further south at the railroad fuel loading area, which is a little bit interesting to see that those specific areas were targeted by the Ukrainian drones. We also were able to see that all the way up at Kubinka, which is a very interesting place in Russia, mind you, because it isn't really a strategic target, it is more so of a target of pride. Kubinka is famous for one thing and one thing only, at least in most people's minds around the world, and that is the Tank Museum. I believe this actually is the Tank Museum right here. This is the largest tank museum, at least in terms of volumes of tanks, that is seen anywhere in the world, and they actually have the only intact Mouse super heavy tank that currently exists in the world. You can still actually see the proof testing that the Soviets did once they captured it to see how thick the armor was on that upper front glacis. Nevertheless,
I thought Bovington in the UK had one of these as well.
Oh, no, the Bovington Tank Museum doesn't have one of these things. There were two Mouse, I think it was Panzerkampfwagen Type 8s is what these are technically called. There was two of them that were made. One of them was actually fully operational, but that one caught on fire and all of the internals got burned out. So when the Soviets arrived, they had a partially completed hull of one and the burned out wreck of the other. So they took the turret from the burned out wreck, put it onto the largely intact hull that was incomplete, and then they brought it back to the Soviet Union for testing. So this is actually the only complete Mouse super heavy tank in the world.
That's impressive, actually, because, this was actually the precursor to the Russian Haus, which was the barn tank that they came up with. So they use this as a template to come up with that. So very fascinating. They have one of the few.
They also have a, let's see, I think this is a Karl Garat heavy mortar as well, which these are a little bit rare, but still, actually, I forgot what this thing, I think it may be a Karl Garat. It's some sort of a German heavy mortar from the Second World War. I believe these things were actually towed around. I don't think they had a motor to actually function. But beyond that, they have a pretty impressive amount of tanks here. But Kubinka has always been in the minds of the Russians, at least in modern recent history, for something entirely different than the Kubinka Tank Museum. And that, as a matter of fact, is just over here. It's pretty much a part of the Kubinka Tank Museum in a sense. It's actually connected on the exact same roadway. And that is Patriot Park, which everyone knows is a pretty big thing in the Russia nowadays, and is used as a major propaganda symbol of the modern-day Russian Federation. This park houses a lot of Russia's modern vehicles, and largely serves as a major propaganda center for the Russian Federation to be able to try and pretend that their military might is something to actually be feared throughout the entirety of the world, showcasing Russia's most advanced military systems and equipment for the general public to be able to come in and see for, I believe, a small price. It is also home to the Cathedral of the Armed Forces, which was a part of a major, pretty much embezzling scandal within the Russian armed forces that was so bad the Russian government actually had to admit that the scandal did go on and hold several people accountable for it. But it is actually a very recent construction. The entire place, the entire complex, is a fairly recent construction in this area. The one thing that is interesting is that the Ukrainians today highlighted this specific Patriot Park complex to be a target for a Ukrainian attack, and we were able to confirm in this video that Patriot Park actually suffered a direct hit. You can actually see the main entrance to Patriot Park right there from a Ukrainian drone early in the morning, which we can see in this clip right here. Oh!
Oh, yes, Patriot Park, блядь. Have some fire.
Eba! Dude, this guy is like, wow, this is such an interactive experience. This is like World War II or something. But still, it is interesting to note that they did hit the Patriot Park facility, although there was only one drone that we were able to confirm that hit the facility. So it didn't attempt to knock out the entirety of the complex. It only appeared to have hit an area on the southern end of the main building. And I'll show y'all the main building here so y'all can... Oh, they have a stage set up, so I actually can't show y'all the main building from that view. Let me see if I can get another one here. So see, there is the main entrance, which y'all could see in this clip right here. I'll go and show it to y'all for the geolocation purposes. There's the main entrance right there, lit up in the morning. That's the entrance that you're seeing. So this drone actually hit within the middle of the C and D building on the southern end of the complex. A little bit interesting to note. I don't exactly know the layout of the main Patriot Park complex and what is in the C and D wings of the building, but an interesting thing to note that it hit directly within the dead center of the two. Moving on from that clip, however, and on into our next bits of news inside the city of Moscow, we were able to see the ongoing attacks in Moscow through other clips like this one right here. Oh, what was that noise, that guy, man? I mean, man, he was like, here comes the drone. Oh, it's like, bro, is he good?
A little bit scared. Moaning out of scaredness.
Dude, he turned into hot dog, man. He went, oh, man, here comes a drone. Oh, like, it's like, bro, it's like, man, he needs to watch out. And they can hear one, and they see it. There it is, it's a Ludi.
What's the need of the Russians to call these drones bitch when they see it? I don't understand.
I don't know, man. They always do it every time, without fail. It's an interesting kind of a thing.
This guy lives in a wonderful apartment block, like top-notch big blocks. Oh, now it's even better. The rent has got lower.
Dude, the property values are decreasing here. We got to give it to the Ukrainians, keeping property values low in Moscow since 2024. We also got to see another clip of the ongoing attacks that were happening in Moscow in this clip as well. You see what appears to be a Ukrainian drone being shot down by air defense as they look out over the night sky of the city of Moscow and get to hear the ongoing air defense activities by the Russians who are desperately trying to defend the capital city. Oh, we can hear one.
Блять, над нами сейчас дрон пролетел.
Call him Captain Obvious.
He's filming the speaker grill to see how it really sounds like.
Dude, he was looking at that mesh grating like that was some new product right there. But meanwhile, as all of this was going on, we also were able to hear that later on, in the middle of the ongoing drone attacks, there appears to have been some sort of a emergency declaration that happened within the area, because in Moscow, temporary checkpoints with armored vehicles and electronic warfare systems have been deployed due to an attack by unidentified drones. We have been able to see one of these checkpoints in this clip right here, which appears to be some sort of a Tiger M armored car modification with a machine gun mounted on up top, as well as security service members standing around the vehicle, largely creating a checkpoint. From what we've been able to hear, this actually was a significant emergency declaration that was made today, and dozens, if not hundreds, there was not an exact count that ever came out, of these checkpoints were set up throughout the entirety of the city of Moscow in some sort of an emergency situation, possibly brought on by the drone attack or brought on by something else. Beyond that, however, it is an interesting thing to note that the city of Moscow was under either such a heavy attack or was going under such a strenuous and near breaking point situation that they had to bring out the armed forces for the first time that we've ever seen into the streets to create impromptu checkpoints along Moscow's major thoroughfares in the city. That has led a lot of
Seems a
people.
bit odd. It seems a bit odd for like a drone attack to start bringing out all these forces and bring out all these different riot trucks and things like that, because typically they don't do that usually. So it's like, what purpose does it serve to have the military on the ground, or at least upgraded riot police when a drone's being attacking the city? It doesn't seem to really want to help.
That I don't really know. And also, the idea of using a light machine gun like that PKP that was mounted on top of that Tiger M to try and shoot down a Ukrainian drone, if that was the case, is a pretty bad idea, because the bullet drop alone will ensure that those bullets land somewhere in a populated area in Moscow, possibly causing collateral from air defense fire. Not really a smart thing, in my opinion, and it doesn't really appear that the Russians exercise common sense and good judgment for a large part either to really have that matter. But beyond that, Ukraine did launch the largest drone attacks on Moscow seen so far, with several regions of the Russian Federation, including the Ryazan refinery, also coming under attack today. And a lot of people are wondering, what is the main objective of these kinds of drone attacks that were being conducted by the Ukrainians today? And it appears that a decent amount of people are saying that they are trying to conduct shock and awe tactics on the Russian military. Others are saying that they're trying to get the attention of Russian civilians and start to point out that the Russian Federation isn't really doing that well in the war, considering that they're coming under a mass drone attack. Some others are saying that it's just merely a normal attack, and a very small amount of people are unsure and undecided. But Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so it looks like 44% of the audience believes that shock and awe on the Russian military is the objective with these brand new drone attacks, while 37% said it's to get the attention of the Russian civilians so that way they speak up, and 14% said it's just merely a normal attack. And I would say, consider this was the largest drone attack so far in the entire war, and specifically targeting Moscow really heavily, which is the capital, and also many other regions. I think it is a shock and awe in the Russian military. And also, another thing as well is I think Ukraine's hitting places like the Patriot Park, which is iconic for Russia. It's a military iconic place for them. I think that is trying to send a message to civilians to let them know that not anywhere, or basically nowhere, is untouchable, and they can strike pretty much anywhere they want. So it does strike fear in civilians. And once again, that's not really the point behind it. The point is to get the civilians to get fed up with the war, so that way they speak up and start getting tired of it and start pushing back on the Putin regime. I think that's part of it, but I think it's actually a mix of both, shock and awe and getting the attention of the civilians. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that it's most likely shock and awe on the Russian military specifically. That's supposed to be sowing fear into the Russian Federation about how the war is going, because this drone attack did reach fairly deep into the area around Moscow, hitting targets like the Patriot Park Museum or complex at Kubinka, as well as other facilities throughout the city of Moscow, which is clearly showing that the Ukrainian armed forces are able to still hold an upper hand advantage, at least as far as drone warfare is concerned, with a lot of these penetrating Moscow's air defense perimeter pretty much being undetected and unseen up until they actually made it within the air defense perimeter, meaning that they traveled 300 miles through Russia without ever being detected. And that is something that is once again most likely attempting to try and show the Russian military that there isn't really an effective way for them to defend against Ukrainian drones, and a lot of their air defense efforts are largely ineffective at this point. We were able to see once again that significant targets at Ryazan and Kubinka were hit today, and many others have also been hit as well, although we haven't gotten enough geolocation to be able to confirm those exact hits. So it does appear to me that this is not going that well for the Russians, and the Ukrainians are trying to make that a little bit more clear. We also were able to hear that the airports in southern Moscow were closed again, including the Zhukovsky airport, right after it opened, just literally a few minutes after it reopened. An hour later, they had to shut it down again because of the major Ukrainian drone attack. We even heard that some of these drones flew all the way through the Moscow air defense perimeter and then pressed on about another 70 miles to attack the Ivanovo Air Base on the southern side of the city of Ivanovo, which I'll show you all over here really quickly when we move this on up to the city of Ivanovo and the Ivanovo Airport. We believe that this airfield was actually it was this airfield right here was directly attacked by the Ukrainian armed forces over the course of the night. We were able to get video and picture evidence to confirm it, which means that these Ukrainian drones, if flying like the Crow, were able to fly approximately 450 miles from the state of Ukraine, pretty much directly past the city of Moscow and directly to its targets at the Ivanovo Air Base, which we can see right here. Video evidence does confirm that the air base did come under attack, which is once again showing us the Ukrainian drones still reign over the skies of Russia, and it's incredibly difficult for Russian air defense to detect or even destroy these drones once they penetrate the airspace. This is the sound of small arms air defense fire coming from Ivanovo as the air base personnel are attempting to stop the drones before they hit the base itself. We can hear some sort of weird sound out there. We hear continued air defense fire. It's fairly sporadic. And once again, entirely small arms base.
Да, значит, летят они на нас.
Nah.
This is like good ambiance to go to sleep to.
Honestly, you know what it sounds like? It sounds kind of like popcorn in the microwave.
Deadly popcorn of the metallic type.
It's lead popcorn. Not good for your teeth. But nevertheless, moving on from the Ivanovo airfield attack, it is quite clear at this point that many places in Russia did come under attack. And it's starting to bring us back to Moscow in total, because while all of this was going on throughout the entirety of Western Russia, we do have to remember that for some interesting reason, Putin pretty much rolled out the military and had them mobilized and deployed into the city streets of Moscow for reasons that we do not really know. We know that it was happening during the middle of the drone attack, and it could be that it was directly related to that. But a lot of people are wondering, what was the mobilization of Russian forces in Moscow really for? Was it for the drones, or was it for something else entirely? And it appears that there is actually a mixed opinion on this. Some people are saying that it's meant to keep the Russian people under control. Some others are saying that it's to calm Russian safety fears and to make it look like the Russian military is actually trying to do something, although in reality, it's not really amounting to much of anything. Some others are saying that it seems odd and ominous and are just leaving it at that, and others are unsure and undecided. But Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well? Because this was a very weird occurrence today, and as far as we've been able to tell, it's never happened in unless if we're talking about the middle of 2023 in the Wagner coup. So what are people thinking about it, and what are you thinking about it as well?
So it looks like 47% of the audience said it's meant to keep the Russians under control and not to actually protect them, while 39% says to calm Russian public safety fears, and 10% said it seems a little bit odd and ominous, like there might be another reason for them to actually be rolled out. And really, when I saw this today, I was thinking the logic behind it of deploying forces on the ground with machine guns and creating military checkpoints throughout Moscow, that has nothing to do with drones whatsoever. So the explanation made no sense. So I thought, of course, with Moscow being the central elite center of Russia, where the elites of Russia basically live, maybe this is to calm the public safety fears. But at the same time, though, it has no real benefit to public safety except for keeping people under control. So the one thing I did notice is that the bulk of these deployments were generally around the Kremlin. I have a very strong feeling this is intended to protect just Putin for some unknown reason. There might be something going on in the background that we're not totally aware of just yet that has Putin feeling uneasy and very uncertain about his security. And it could be why they're suddenly having checkpoints in the area. So we don't really have all the details just yet on it, but I have a feeling there is a second explanation to this that we're not being told, because it really doesn't make much sense. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that it appears to be an incredibly odd occurrence. Once again, we've never seen Russian troops deployed in the city of Moscow like this, unless if it was the middle of 2023 during the Wagner coup led by Yevgeny Prigozhin. Well, you've never really seen this before, so this is the second time in the entirety of the war that this has been rolled out into Moscow, and I would have to assume that it's something that is a little bit more serious than we're believing, at least here on the surface. It did happen in the middle of the drone attack, but it also happened at the same time that the major offensive in Ukraine was being announced to create a quote-unquote sanitary zone. So it may be that there was some sort of expectation of public uprisings or something similar that may possibly were going to happen, and so they were trying to pretty much meet them at the pass or cut them off at the pass before they could even really begin. I'm not really sure what it is, but there were a lot of things that did happen one after the other today, including the major drone attack, the declaration of a new offensive, as well as some other things that appeared to have been going on in the background inside of Ukraine itself that may have led the Russians to believe that today was the day to pretty much roll out a military occupation or martial law of the city of Moscow for the large part. But still, I'd have to say that in this one instant, I'm actually within the 5% that say they're unsure and undecided, because there were enough different things that happened today, it's really hard to say which one exactly this was in a response to. And once again, these guys don't really look like they're outfitted, just to show y'all this again, for any kind of anti-drone activities. If we look at them, That's a Tiger M, which appears to be a part of some sort of an internal security bureau, with one soldier at the back with an AK and one up top with a machine gun. And that seems to be the entire bit of firepower that this vehicle has. It's right outside of the Kremlin, about a quarter-mile away. And this is not at all a setup for any kind of air defense. This is more so an internal police sort of a situation, or an internal domestic emergency situation sort of a setup that we're seeing here, which seems to be showing that there was something that was expected to happen today in Moscow that really didn't have a lot to do with drones, probably had something to do with something else. So once again, I'm a little undecided. It could have been anything. It could have been the two main options that we had in the poll tonight, or it could have been something else entirely that we don't even know about. It's a complete mystery to me. Anyways, moving on from that and out of the, at least out of the streets of Moscow and on into the Kremlin itself, we were able to hear that Putin has now announced today that they're going to be creating a buffer zone in Ukraine, like it's worked before. But let me get you all to the statement that Putin made here while he's hunched over this desk like he's some sort of a gremlin. He looks like he's about to say, "Bring me the chits," or something, like something weird. But here's the clip of him saying that they're going to start a new offensive to create a sanitary zone.
Уже говорил, что было принято решение о создании необходимой буферной зоны безопасности вдоль границ. Наши вооруженные силы сейчас эту задачу решают. Активно подавляются огневые точки противника. Работа идет. Уже
That's the end of the statement there, or at least a part of the statement that he made today on national TV in Russia. But we were able to confirm that the Russian Federation is beginning an offensive throughout the entirety of the Chernihiv, Sumy, and Kharkiv Oblasts to create a quote-unquote sanitary zone. Based off of the description that has been given by Putin, we would have to assume that if we were going exactly off of what he said, then that means they're probably going to try and push 10 to 15 miles deep into Ukraine and then stop about there. We know that that's not the reality. They're going to be going as far as they can. That's really the truth of it, because this is an attempt at a new offensive. But I do want to remind everyone that the last time they tried a sanitary zone throughout the entirety of the Chernihiv, Sumy, and Kharkiv Oblasts, that's all that they achieved, was this right here. That's all that's left. There was nothing else that was left. And that was using all of the available combat reserve power that they had back at the beginning of 2024. We're now in the middle part of 2025. The combat situation is a lot worse, or at least the available equipment for offensive operations is a lot worse off. So I'm thinking that this sanitary zone is going to be a fairly short-lived kind of an endeavor. They didn't really succeed the first time. I have a feeling that they don't have enough combat power to make it succeed a second time. Not only that, they still haven't pushed the Ukrainians entirely out of the Kursk Oblast, at least around the area of Goevo and Oleshnia, and we also have heard that they have not pushed the Ukrainians out of Popovo, Lazachi, or Tekhino. So for them to be able to create a sanitary zone, they'd have to push the Ukrainians out of Russia first, and they so far have not been able to do that yet. So I'm assuming that this whole sanitary zone business is not really going to amount to much of anything beyond it being a major bloodbath for the Russians over the next few coming months as it slowly unfolds into a disaster, largely like every other offensive that Russia has conducted. Beyond that, however, a lot of people have been putting in their opinion about what the security buffer or sanitary zone is really about that's going to be created along the Ukrainian border. And a lot of people are saying their answer to what is that? Or what are those? And it appears that a lot of people are saying that it's just a meaningless distraction by the Russian government. Some others are saying that Russia will try to take all of the border towns along the regions of the Ukrainian border zone, an attempt to say that that gives them some sort of a diplomatic right to claim the remainder of the Chernihiv, Sumy, and Kharkiv Oblasts, possibly. Some others are saying that the Russians will drive Ukraine out of Russia in the Belgorod and Kursk area, and others are unsure and undecided. But it is something that kind of came a little bit out of the blue, not really out of the blue too much. We did know that there was a force buildup along the border, but at least the declaration that they're trying to create a sanitary zone along the border, that kind of came out of the blue, because it was just not too long ago in Istanbul that they were demanding the Chernihiv, Sumy, and Kharkiv Oblasts in their entirety, and now they're invading them and claiming that they're only going to create a short sanitary zone. But Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so 43% said it's just meaningless and it's a distraction by the Russians, while 38% said Russia will try taking all the border towns that are disputed right now, and 13% said Russia will drive Ukraine out of Russia. And first of all, the main thing that Russia has to do in order to actually have a successful security buffer zone is they have to drive the Ukrainians out of their own territory first, meaning out of mainland Russia and back into Ukraine. They've been unsuccessful in doing that so far, and the Ukrainians are still fighting in a limited fashion inside of Kursk and Belgorod. So to say that they're going to create a buffer zone when they don't even have control of their own territory inside of Russia, that's a bit of a stretch. That would be a prerequisite, and so far, Russia has not met that. So I'm going to say this seems like a distraction because remember, there's something else coming up, the major summer offensive, where Russia is going to make big pushes on, like, for example, cities like Kharkiv and other ones to try to take more ground. And that is coming up here in the summer. And I think the security buffer announcement today is a distraction to try to divert Ukrainians away from that focus of the summer offensive and onto the security buffer thing, which is meaningless because Russia doesn't even control their own territory right now. So I'm actually with the 42%. I think it's just a distraction. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, in my opinion, I believe it is a distraction. We already know that the Russian Federation is lacking a large amount of offensive capabilities, at least in their current composition of the Russian ground forces. They are very much deficient on operational main battle tanks, armored personnel carriers, and also artillery pieces. While they have been able to produce, or at least procure from the North Koreans, a significant amount of shells to be able to outdo the Ukrainians in volume of firepower every day, they still do not have a large enough and available spread of additional artillery systems, say towed artillery pieces or SPGs, to actually lay out an additional, entirely new area of firepower in this offensive, which would be spanning a multi-hundred-mile long front line. I'm expecting that this is most likely going to go nowhere. This is well out of the scope of any current Russian offensive capabilities, because we do have to remember that we have to put this into scope and scale. Now, a Russian offensive in a focalized area may have a limited chance of success, even at this point in the war, if we're talking about a really small area, like the city of Pokrovsk. The city of Pokrovsk battlefield, if we were actually to measure this out, and let me just measure out the general area, if we were to make this a playing board on a war game, how big would the area of the Battle of Pokrovsk be? It would be approximately an area that is about 425 square miles, which sounds significant, but in the big picture of things, when we look at the entirety of Ukraine, it's actually so minuscule, it really doesn't even register on the big picture. And that's the entirety of the battlefield for both the Russian and the Ukrainian side. Now, let's put that into perspective, how many square miles a 15-mile deep sanitary zone would include if we just gave a rough estimate of it. So let's go about 15 miles in, which would be about right here. And then we're going to try and draw this out. I'm going to make it very rough so that way we can get through this quickly and just kind of get a little bit of a rough estimate here. But this area of square miles is going to be absolutely massive. They had to amass a huge offensive force just to deal with what's going on in Pokrovsk right now, and they're making no ground. They're actually losing ground most of the time these days in small amounts. And then they want to take an area this size, composed of this many square miles, and then act like that's a feasible military operation. It would be an absolutely insane thing. So let me get this here, because I want to make sure that I have the exact square mile number before we move on from here. So this is the rough approximated area that the sanitary zone would exist in. And that is a 6,300 square mile battlefield, if we were to say that that entire area has to be occupied by the Russian Federation. Now, put that into perspective. Right now, an area that is 430 square miles around the Pokrovsk front is practically impossible for them to actually be able to conduct a significant offensive in. And while they are able to make limited amounts of ground over the course of about 5 months, that is quite truly baby steps compared to what they would need to be able to do to create this supposed sanitary zone along the Chernihiv, Sumy, and Kharkiv Oblast borders. It's just too much ground for them to be able to cover in an offensive. And not only that, they have tens of thousands. From what we know right now, they have about 60,000 Russian troops that are currently involved in the Pokrovsk offensive right now, involved in the brigades that are charged with the responsibility of taking the city of Pokrovsk, and they are making practically no ground with 60,000 men in that 428 square mile front. So to tackle a 6,300 square mile front, let's do the math on that. Let's do the math. Let me whip out a calculator so that way we can figure out the exact number of manpower they would need to take on an area this big if the fighting across the whole front was as intense as it was in the city of Pokrovsk. So a 62 or 6,300 square mile area divided by 430 square miles to represent how many times larger this is than the Battle of Pokrovsk's area. This is 14.7 times larger a battlefield, or 15 times larger, rounding it up, than the battlefield that Pokrovsk is currently being fought on right now. It takes them about 60 to 70,000 troops to make minimal gains, in fact, lose gains sometimes, pretty much in a stalemate around Pokrovsk. So to get this battlefield going and to just have it at a stalemate in terms of manpower alone, we are going to have to multiply this 14.65 figure by about 65,000 troops. It would take the Russians 952,000 men if we were to assume that the battles were as fierce as they were in Pokrovsk along this entire front, which is highly likely because there are decent settlements throughout this entire area similar in size to Pokrovsk. It would take the entire Russian army to actually try and take an area this big. It would take about 950,000 men. So this is an absolutely impossible goal by the Russians, and that means it's a meaningless distraction, or the ambitions are so large in this offensive, it will never actually materialize. Not only that, we're not just speaking about manpower figures here, we have to talk about all of the material figures that are also involved in supporting a force of that scale to be able to do something like this. They would have to have thousands of main battle tanks, many more thousands of armored personnel carriers, hundreds and hundreds of artillery pieces, with thousands of rounds of shells to commit to the armed forces every day across that whole offensive to even have a chance of actually making a significant gain over the entirety of the border. So unless if this is isolated in just the Sumy area, or just Chernihiv, or just Kharkiv, which still has a limited chance of succeeding, I don't think this is going to succeed. And to put this into another figure, one that we actually have a historical precedent for, the Vovchansk offensive, which has been a failure to this day, was supposed to achieve a sanitary zone over the whole of the Kharkiv Oblast for the Russians. So it was supposed to go about 10 to 15 miles in. Let me measure that for y'all. That's about 15 miles in, so pretty much to the very outskirts of Kharkiv. It was supposed to be 10 to 15 miles deep along the entirety of the Kharkiv Oblast border with the Russian Federation. Fast forward a year and a half, they are only a mile and a half deep. They only hold an area just north of Vovchansk, and they still haven't gotten anywhere, and they had to dedicate 50,000 troops to that offensive to gain such a small and minuscule achievement. That's nothing. And so this idea is truly a ludicrous one. It actually would come out of the mind of someone who has to be delusional at this point, because there's no way for anyone to achieve this kind of thing in the war. Like, if the Ukrainians said, we're going to invade Belgorod, Kursk, and Bryansk and create a 10 to 15 mile deep sanitary zone, I would have the exact same response. Ukraine doesn't have the manpower, the tanks, the armored personnel carriers, or the shells, or the artillery pieces necessary to actually support an offensive of that scale and succeed. It would be impossible. At this point, neither side can really muster up enough manpower or enough of a superior firepower advantage to actually be able to overwhelm the other and create a significant frontline offensive. It just doesn't exist at this point in the war anymore. And so the Russians saying something like this, it is 100%, in my opinion, a meaningless distraction, meant to largely move away from the situation going on at Pokrovsk and Toretsk and Chasiv Yar, where the Russians are continuously losing for the large part, not really making any gains at all. But another interesting thing, before we move on from this, because I've been monologuing on this answer for a while, and I want to give one more thing before we move on. Don't y'all find it a little bit interesting that Putin is starting a major new offensive? Whether it can succeed or not, it's not the point. Let's just think about it at the topical level on a diplomatic stage. He's starting a 2,400 or a 2,600 square mile offensive when the U.S. is saying that the Russians need to work towards peace. So the Russians' response was to start a brand new offensive that will require 1 million men to succeed, and that is going to be over a 2,600 square mile area. Maybe this isn't necessarily about the actual success of this offensive. Maybe it's more so a diplomatic message that the Russian Federation doesn't even want to go into peace talks again, and this is supposed to be their clear answer to they don't even want to try.
I wonder if it's not a distraction. That is my first option. My first assumption would be that this is a distraction from the upcoming summer offensive. Then the secondary option I would say is it's probably because Putin realizes that the civilians are starting to get fed up with the war and that the Ukrainian drone attacks are picking up on the Russian civilian population. So he's probably thinking, I need to start doing something quick to make it seem like I'm protecting the civilians. And by creating the security buffer zone, I'm saying that I'm protecting the border towns. And also by deploying the military inside of Moscow, I can also say that I'm protecting the Moscow civilians. So I wonder if it's because the people are starting to get fed up and he's starting to realize that, and he's trying to take these actions which just have basically face value to them to make it look like he's doing something.
Maybe so. Maybe that could also be another reason for it. But it's an interesting kind of a thing to see because there's a lot of different ways that this could be interpreted, what's going on here. But one thing's quite clear beyond all of the interpretations that we give to the real reasons behind this offensive has no shot in succeeding. It just never will. But with that, I hope that addresses that the best I can. And moving on from that and out of that bit of news, it actually is time for us to move on to something that was really comical yesterday and actually brought in the crowds. It was a real crowd pleaser yesterday to hear that a Chongjin class destroyer from North Korea that was just being launched had foundered on its launch and had actually pretty much sank in the middle of its launch. That was something that got people in yesterday, and it was one of our record-breaking streams recently. We had 11.5 thousand people on live, and 130,000 people have watched that stream since it went live. It was a huge deal yesterday to hear that a North Korean destroyer actually sank right in front of Kim Jong-un. And a lot of people would have believed that that was a story that was just nothing more than a mere fiction, because it just sounds insane. There's no way that that could happen. No one's ever messed up that badly. But when I take y'all to the port of Chongjin, we actually have proof today. I said last night, and I got to say, I scored this one dead on the nail. I got to give myself a little bit of credit here. That within 24 hours, there was guaranteed going to be satellite and picture footage showing us that that vessel had been lost and was most likely still sitting on the spillway in some way, or the slipway, and was just sitting there foundered. And today we actually have the proof. We actually do have the proof to confirm that the vessel was lost. This is the ship, as it is today. There it is.
Oh dear, look at that. It looks like tarp's covering it up like it's some type of bad construction project gone wrong.
It is crazy. We do have an AI enhanced picture right here showing generally kind of what it would look like if we had a clear resolution to the picture. One thing that is interesting though is that you don't really get to see the divine shape of the vessel in the AI enhanced image. But in the normal satellite picture, we can see, I guess you could say, the depth and volume of the vessel below the tarpage, which we can see is being laid over the vessel to try and hide it from satellite view. But let me go show you all this, because we can see that this is a Chongjin class destroyer when we look at it up close. So this is the general superstructure and hull of the Chongjin destroyer. So let's keep that in mind, and let's see if we can get some identifying elements to this vessel. First, we can see at the back that there is a pronounced lower area, pretty much directly in line with the main hull structure, that appears to be a helipad, which we can clearly see back there. We can also see that there is an elevation feature right here, which appears to have further on inside some sort of an inboard vertical launch system cell that's also built on, which is exactly in line with the stern section of the Chongjin class destroyer. Directly amidships, we can also see what appears to be the exhaust port for the engine bay, which we can see, or the machinery spaces, which we can see right there. We can also see what appears to be the pronounced superstructure near to the bridge up here at the front. We can see that right there under the tarps. And then through the rest of it, we can see what appears to be the main bow of the vessel, which appears to actually still be on the actual slipway itself. We can also find, funnily enough, exactly where this was in Chongjin. It's not that hard, really. And moving all right into here, this is what we believe. Actually, let me make sure. Let me double check, because there is another place that is a possible candidate. So I want to make sure that we're getting this. Oh my god, how many fishing boats do they have? Holy moly, there's like 300 of them.
Are these functional ones or just clunkers?
They're functional. They're functional, man, because that's how you do them in China. But look at the dude, they packed them in like sardines.
Yeah, how do you even get one out if you need to leave?
Dude, you're just blocked in. You're just blocked
yeah, you're
in.
Finished.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. But let me go down here real quick, because I want to make sure that this was in the right spot. Let's see here. So what's interesting about this exact spot, there are GPS coordinates up here, but for some reason Google Maps doesn't really accept that too well. So we can see clearly a shipbuilder's area, and then some sort of like a park or garden thing. Let me see if I can find exactly where that was. Holy smokes, there's more of them. How many do they have? And they're still starving? They got that many fishing boats and they're still starving? Probably because all of them are gridlocked. They can't even get most of them out to sea, really. But I'm guessing, folks, because for some reason there's some slight differences here that don't exist in the normal satellite pictures, because this isn't Chongjin. Let's see. It's got to be in here somewhere, because if we look at this, it looks like it's in that similar area.
Yeah, it looks like they might have just recently added the what is it, the spillway like pieces there to like actually slip it into the water. Maybe I can't tell though. Like I'm sort of confused at this point how they got it to the how they got it to the water right there. But usually there's like a shipbuilding nearby too that they roll it out of. So I'm not really sure.
Yeah, where the hell did they even build this? Because it's not like this looks like a professional shipbuilders or anything in here anywhere. Oh, wait a minute. Hold
Oh,
up.
there it is.
Let me flip this thing around to where we're facing the other way. Is there a way to do that on here? Because we don't do that often, and it doesn't look like there is.
Yeah, I don't think there is.
That looks like it. Let me check that.
Yeah, there's the crane or little dolly thing over there on the left side. So yeah, we're looking at it from the opposite angle.
That's interesting. So we can see the crane systems. I'm just wondering what these are because they almost look like vegetation and stuff that exists there. But there is a large opening behind that where there easily could have been a watching crowd with Kim Jong-un in it. And it does fit the general desolation of the area. So it does look like, from what we can tell, this is actually the exact spot right here. So we're looking at it from north to south. We're looking at it from south to north here on the satellite image. That's why it was a little bit difficult to find it there. But beyond that, that is a lot of boat to be lost. Let me try and get y'all an approximate length on this thing. So this thing is actually about a 472-foot long destroyer that's currently foundered in the actual spillway, or the slipway, right there.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is really interesting. You know something else that's interesting? Because it foundered onto its side, salt water has gotten into pretty much everything that is not in the very front of the bow. So the entirety of the computer systems within the superstructure, most likely completely destroyed by the salt water. The engine room and machinery space is completely destroyed by salt water. The helicopter, the hangar, completely destroyed by salt water. Propulsion systems, everything else, completely destroyed by salt water. So I don't really think there's going to be a way to get this thing operational in less than a couple of weeks. And not only that, we have to consider that considering the violent nature of the foundering here at the slipway, I would assume that the rear end of the hull has taken significant damage because it was dragged along the bottom of the harbor. And also the bow probably took a lot of shearing damage as well, because we have been able to hear that apparently the actual keel of the vessel, which is its backbone, has been ripped asunder up here near the front where the bow was flipped over because it never detached from the slipway. So it pretty much served as the pivot for the vessel as it was flying into the water, and it actually broke the back of the ship. So this ship might actually be a total loss at this point, because if the keel breaks, there's no fixing it. And let me go pull up the keel, the ship's keel. Let's see.
I think the telltale sign of if the ship's actually a total loss will be if the entire shipbuilding yard gets executed. If maybe just a couple of guys that launched the boat get executed, maybe it's able to be saved. But I think the severity of the executions will tell us something.
I don't believe it's going to be safe because the keel is the backbone of the vessel. And let me see if I can show y'all a little bit better of an example of a keel. It's not really a good example. Like, this is probably the best one I have. You see this blue area right here on this merchant vessel on this picture here?
Yeah.
So that is the backbone of the ship. And when you start building a ship, throughout all of history, it's always built the same way. They start from the keel and then they work out. So this is quite truly the backbone. It is the strongest part of the vessel. It handles all of the troughs and crests of the waves. If this is broken, the ship is broken. It's quite truly like breaking a human spine. If you break someone's spine, that person is paralyzed. If you break a ship's keel, it is paralyzed. It's completely destroyed at that point. And from what we've heard, the keel did break somewhere up here, just ahead of amidships, near to the bow. So considering that the keel is broken, at least from what we're hearing right now, this ship is actually a total loss at this point. You actually cannot repair a keel once it's broken, because it will never have the kind of structural integrity needed to actually be seaworthy.
It's just insane to really see the thing laying on its side like that with tarps over it. It's not really because, losing the ship is like really that big of a deal, because obviously it's a big deal. They lost an expensive ship, but it's more of a propaganda blow because this was the highly anticipated thing they kept hyping up. We kept seeing photos of it coming out. Like, they would show photos of it being built. Kim would walk around it smiling and pointing like it was the pride and joy. And that's the real travesty here, is the pride and joy of the DPRK has fallen on its side. It's sunk. And now the thing's basically basically a total loss, at least in my opinion, based on what we're seeing. So that's just crazy. And the fact they're trying to cover it up with tarps, knowing it's a total loss, indicates how embarrassed they are by this, because obviously we know it's a ship under there. It's not like a mystery. We clearly see it's a ship, and it rolled right off the slipway or the spillway. So it's like, why try to cover it with tarps? But that's how embarrassed they are. They're trying to hide just what's left of it, which is crazy.
And you know what's interesting here? I actually did find some satellite pictures of this one under construction. Here's a picture of it as it was being built.
Look at that. It was being built right in the open.
Yeah, well, that's how all ships are built. Like, we even build our ships in the U.S. Navy that way in the wide open. Let me take you to
I thought they had a cover over it, because they had videos showing like a massive like cover. Did they just roll that over it or something?
Yeah, they just whipped out a tarp just to cover it up right there, because it's not the great communist state building a vessel, which they're proud of. It's the great communist state just broke the keel of a brand new destroyer and pretty much destroyed it literally right out the gate. It's not even in service yet, and it got destroyed. So they whipped out the tarps as an emergency measure, but they didn't exist beforehand. And also, to show you this, in Newport News, you can see here in Dry Dock 12, they're building a new vessel from the ground up here with no cover or anything.
Well, yeah, surely you wouldn't want to build it from the ground down. You want to build it from the ground up, that's for sure. So Kim Jong did start a good way that way. You know, the unfortunate part, though, is like this is the part that's going to be disturbing to see, because we will be seeing this. I can pretty much guarantee you it's coming. Kim Jong-un is going to have these people viciously executed, because this right here, there's been people executed for much less than this, like way, way less than this. These people are going to suffer that did this. Like Kim Jong is going to make them suffer badly. And basically, when you get fired in the West, you just get fired and you lose your job. When you get fired in North Korea, that means like with a flamethrower, like they're coming after you with like a flamethrower. They're going to fire you. That's a whole different version of employment firing than we're used to. So it's about to be bad. And I'm surprised we haven't heard anything yet. So they must be rounding them up still.
And also, Dragon said they are already dead. Oh, no. They're not dead yet, because in the North Korean culture, which is largely reinforced by the Songbun, which is their caste system, North Korea, interesting enough, actually shares a good bit with India in the form that they both have caste systems. It's just that India's was formed over thousands of years of culture. North Korea's was formed by about 70 years of a shitty dictatorship. So it's like a caste system, but lamer, because this is the actual names that they have for their castes. There are 3: loyal, wavering, and hostile. And those are the only 3 castes that there are. If you're in the hostile caste, you live in a gulag or you're killed. That's pretty much it. If you're in the wavering class, you're okay. You're not going to get killed instantly, but you still are considered disloyal by the government because you're not completely devoted to the Kim regime. And if you're in the loyal class, which is the very top, you live in Pyongyang. And that's why all of the people who are called North Korea's elite that live in Pyongyang are the elite. They're in the loyal class, so they've made it to the top. And so all of those people live in Pyongyang. In fact, there are really no loyal class people in the Songbun system that live outside of Pyongyang in the countryside. Every single one of them lives in Pyongyang. But beyond that, this is something that
pull up on a different tab real quick. Punch in Kim Jong-un happy. Like pull up a picture of him happy real quick. I want to make a point. I got to have some visualizations though to make this point. So let's see it. Kim Jong-un happy. There we go. Click on. There he is. Look at him. This is when Kim Jong-un's happy. This is before. This is pre-sinking of the destroyer. Now punch in Kim Jong-un sad or angry, and let's see that one real quick. This is after sinking. Here he is right here. Oh my God. This is probably actually how he looked right here. He's probably grimacing. We'll never sadly get to know though. I'm dying to see the footage of this live event because it was being filmed. And I would love to see the expression on his face. It was probably sheer horror. And I'll be curious to see what happened in the moment because that'd been a hell of a sight to see.
Man, when you sit there and you wait 3 years to build some crappy third backwater destroyer, and then the keel breaks right in front of you at its launch ceremony, that's the look you get. Like that's the look you get right there. Man, that's the look there where he goes, I want these fools killed. Like that's the kind of look that you get right there.
Man, if Kim Jong-un looks like he's about to hurl or something like that, somebody's head's about to roll.
Dude, let's see. That's the look he had when the ship was rolling over. Like you're right on top of him pretty much. Bro,
That's the
man.
look you have when you're looking up to see if the nukes are flying back your direction or not.
This is the look that he had when he was trying to get composure to not execute everyone on sight for what just happened in front of him. This also right here is what he was looking like when he went out and said that this was a crime of the highest order. Let's see here. That's also what he looked like when he was immediately distracted by the only donut in North Korea, which was just floating by after the ship sank, because there was like a whole snack bar on board that was supposed to be for him when, it launched successfully. And this is what he's going to be looking like when they're getting executed.
Oh yes, a little bit of that gleefulness right there. That interesting gleefulness, and also he's smoking, what is it, Newports or something? He's smoking those cigarettes.
No, man, he's not the kind of guy to smoke Newports. He's smoking Virginia Slims. My boy's a real one. He's hanging out with the Karens and the Darrens.
Fats.
Dude, he's so fat that when he smokes a Virginia Slim, it's just called Virginia.
He takes the Slim out of Virginia. Man, call that the North Korean fat special.
Man, oh goodness, bro. Why are there so many pictures of him where he actually looks wrong? Like, aren't they supposed to have like a whole cult of personality thing? I don't see it here.
Yeah, I thought so. And also, what is that dude on cocaine or something over there on the left? Look at him gritting his teeth, man. That dude's like straight on something. Like, look at that.
Dude, it's not called cocaine in North Korea, Matthew. It's called the snow of Mount Pektu.
Man, a snow of Mount Pektu. That's that legendary stuff. Apparently, I've never seen anybody gritting like that. That dude is like ready for something to go down. He's not leaving without something.
Bro, honestly, man, he's got the look like he just pulled the pin on a grenade and he's still holding it. And he's waiting for it to go off. Like, that's what he looks like right there, man. Bro, that's the kind of look of like, that's kind of look at the gritting emoji from Samsung. Let me go pull it up. Gritting emoji. One second. Gritting emoji. Hold up.
John must be feeding him that supply that he's selling from time to time. You got to get him, hyped up, a little bit of that blow.
Bro, here it is. Bro, that's exactly what he looks like right there. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Looks just like that.
He really does. He looks like it. Why is it called Samsung?
Because that's the Samsung grimacing emoji or something. Oh my lord, dude, it came back to me. I saw this on a meme like 5 years ago. When I saw his face, I was like, oh my god, he's doing the grimacing emoji from Samsung. Like, I've never seen that before in real life. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on from this whole North Korean, the ship is sinking, it's like the Titanic, but better because it's North Korean and, there's not a bunch of innocent people on board. But still, hey, not bad. Not bad. To lose the Chongjin destroyer, the second one. I like to hear it. Also, is there, oh, look, dude, they added it on April 25th of 2025, which was just a little while ago, the first ship was launched, which we covered here on the channel. During the launch of the second ship at Chongjin, a serious accident occurred, damaging the hull in the process. Kim Jong-un declared it to be a serious accident and a criminal act. He stated that the ship must be restored by the next plenary of the party in June. He also called for those designing the ship, why in the world are the people designing the ship being held responsible? Like, that doesn't make any sense. They just designed the ship. They didn't drop it off the slipway.
Yeah, really, the designers, that's all they've got. They better not get rid of them. They won't be able to make another ship.
Dude, they're going to kill all the designers and be like, man, it's crazy. We can't, make any good ships. It's like, well, no wonder. You just killed them. Bro, it's going to be like the Dictator movie, man, where he, kills all of the nuclear scientists and they just end up in Little Aladdin in New York.
Yeah.
That's what's happening over there, man. I still have to say, though, that the flag of the Korean People's Navy, it looks like it was made in Microsoft Paint. I don't even know what this really is supposed to be, but it looks bad. Honestly,
looks like a TV broadcasting test page or something.
Also, man, why did they have to put the date of the founding of the Navy up there like it was literally an essay that they're turning in school? The 8th month and the 28th day of 1949. And also, doesn't that go against their commie calendar, man, where they said that year 1 was the birth of Kim Il-sung?
Yeah, year 1, that was when the leader came around, so I'm not sure. That seems like a weird dating scheme right there. It's like a timestamp on a video.
Yeah, also, man, here's their Jack.
Oh, come on, Jack. Put in some work, Jack. Look, this took a lot of effort. 1 star emoji off of Microsoft Paint and a couple of those white lines. Come on, Jack.
You know, man, this they probably had this flying from the back of that destroyer when it's launched. So I guess considering the violent, jarring nature of the vessel going into the water and ripping the flag off, I guess you could say it was a jack off.
Oh, jeez. Damn.
Oh man, and that's their ensign. I guess it's Mount Pektu right there again. They love that mountain. That's like the only thing they have going for them is that one mountain.
Or that's an igloo ice you put in your lunchbox when you need to keep stuff cold, one or the other.
Bro, or honestly, man, you know what that kind of looks like? That just looks like the top of a drink here in America.
Yeah, just something like that. Just real lame looking.
Yeah, and then they also put the rays of sunshine because the sun-faced leader Kim Il-sung came from this mountain, Mount Pektu, although he was really born somewhere near Vladivostok, but we don't talk about that. Anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on from this whole North Korean fun time segment. We love to talk about the North Koreans making fools of themselves. But moving on from that, it is time for us to move on into a little poll that we have on that loss of that Chongjin-class destroyer. As satellite images did confirm the loss of the vessel today, and a lot of people have been putting in their thoughts, and everyone's saying that the ship is totaled, pretty much. But Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about it as well?
So 72% of the audience said the ship is totaled, and 17% said the ship was likely repairable. And I think it's pretty much obvious the ship is pretty much screwed at this point. It's been flooded pretty much because it's gone sideways and capsized. And also, who knows what damage was caused to the hull when it actually went down like that. It probably broke the back of the ship. So the ship is done, but that's not going to prevent Kim Jong-un from telling them to repair it anyway, because he knows that they have massive threats over their head. And if they don't comply and repair it, even though it's basically impossible, then they might end up meeting a bad fate. So they're going to be pressured to fix something that's unfixable, basically, and we'll have to see if that actually gets them to do a miracle, and they might actually be able to fix it. I'm not sure. I think it's total, though, but they're going to try to fix it. But Enforcer, what say you?
My answer is hell to the no. That thing is totaled. Like, there's just no way to bring it back. If the keel's broken, there's no way to fix it before the plenary in June. They just couldn't do it. If they say that they do, and they have pictures showing that it's out there, they're going to have another disaster where it goes out into the open sea, the keel breaks, and it sinks like a rock, is what's going to happen. Because of the keel, like, the keel supports the whole structure of the ship. If that breaks, and you just try and, like, re-weld that together, it's having to support tens of thousands of tons on that broken keel. So that means that once it goes over a bow or a trough, or a crest or a trough out there in the open sea, that thing is going to rip wide open. And considering that the keel will be broken at that point, the ship will break clean all the way up through it from where the break in the keel is, and the whole thing goes under. It's literally going to go down on that lake they call Big Sumy. Has anyone heard of the triple one on down that they call the Chongjin destroyer? You know, it's like they're going to be sinking out there like the damn Edmund Fitzgerald. So it's not going to, no, that thing's lost. Like, they can try and execute more people for it not being ready for the plenary in June. The reality is that thing's toasted. They got to build a whole new one if they want one. So that would be my opinion. But man, soon, man, they're going to be saying that the Bay of Chongjin is for fishers and sportsmen because there's going to be no Navy operations out there. Pretty much everyone's going to be executed before this is over. But hey, you know something great though, Matthew, is that with this loss happening here, if anyone's held responsible and they're not executed, they're not going to be that far from their former place of employment. Because just up the road, approximately 5 miles away, is Camp 25, which is a gulag. So literally 5 miles away is a gulag.
Yeah, they won't need that. I don't think the gulag's fit for the people that designed that ship. I think they got something different coming.
Man, let's see. What kind of humane punishments will they implement in North Korea? I'd say probably
humane? Can you define humane?
Well, humane is what the state desires in North Korea. So let's think. Executed by 100 cobra bites. Nah, that sounds a little bit too exotic. We got to come up with something a little bit more North Korean.
We want to be very human in its design.
Killed by industrial machinery. No, that's more of a Chinese thing.
That's usual. That's usual.
Yeah. Let's see. Death by starvation. Nah, that's what everyone does in North Korea.
Right,
the death by starvation. That's nothing new. That's kind of a run-of-the-mill thing. Firing squad. Nah, that's too.
That happens at random. It's just It is what it is.
Ice pick in the brain. No, that's reserved for.
No, they don't have ice picks. Sorry, they just ran out.
Yeah, that's reserved for our folks, sons of bitches. But let's see. What could they do, folks, in North Korea that they haven't done yet? They got to come up with something creative for this one. So we'll find out. We'll eventually find out. But they're going to make a whole process of this, folks. These folks aren't dead yet. They're torturing them right now. That I can promise you. But they're going to bring them out on Korean national TV, and they're going to make a whole show of it. It's going to be a huge show and a production because of how serious this was and the fact that they couldn't really hide it.
I think the ship fellows might be about to get the Unk treatment that the Unk of Kim Jong-un got in the square, like where they literally launched like missiles and AA gunfire at them or something. It's going to be something where it's horrifying. I think it's going to be something that people are going to be horrified to see. Because that seems to be what's going to happen. Because Unk got that treatment for merely being connected to Kim Jong-un. So if Unk got that, can you imagine what the ship designers are going to get? That's probably going to be much worse. And honestly, when I'm saying that, I'm not making it like a light of it, by the way. I'm actually being serious. It just sounds whack because it's obviously insane. But I really feel bad for the people. Like, there's no way the designer should be held responsible for that. And even if the people did do something wrong, they didn't do it wrong intentionally because they knew the consequences were going to be severe. So they made a very bad mistake. It ended up in disaster, and now those people are in for it, which is a shame because they obviously don't deserve what they're about to get, but it's coming to them.
Yeah, I hate, honestly, it's really sad thing to think about. I'm more so making the humor of the absurdity of the dictatorship itself, but not the unfortunate fate that meets these people who really had no control over this. The reality is that slipway there has probably been used for about 80 years without any replacements or maintenance, and it was doomed to fail. Someone probably brought it up, and they said, well, we're not funding that, so just get it done. And then they tried to launch it on the slipway, and then it just failed at that very moment, and then the ship was totaled. I think that's probably the reality of it, because look at that slipway, and tell me that this infrastructure doesn't look like it was built in the 40s. It looks like this specific shipyard has been there pretty much unaltered since about 1940, maybe.
Yeah, it looks like it could be like 50 BC or something.
Honestly, this looks like it would have been around during Japanese occupation of Korea.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been. It really could have been. This place looks horrific just overall.
Map of Chongjin. Why is it saying Chongqing? I'm not wanting that. We want Chongjin. Yeah, so Chongjin in 1940. Let's go with 1940. Let's see if we can get a map of Chongjin in 1940, because that might give us a little bit of an idea here. So that's what let me check that. Yeah, so let's see. The reference is correct there. Wait a minute. If that's the river, hold up. Is there, did they re-divert a river? Because they're not showing that's not even close to the Chongjin that's around today. But that says,
Also, by the way, I see people mentioning in the chat that don't let Kim Jong-un get a hold of those flex tape commercials where they saw that boat in half, because they're gonna be ordering like bulk. They're gonna be ordering bulk quantity of that stuff. And they might. You never know.
Let's see. Okay, so Chongjin was the same size as it is now. Look at that. Like, look at this right here, Matthew. If you look at that, it's got the same city shape and everything. Look, like the northern side juts out up here a little bit. It extends out over to this area right about here and stops. So this city was actually the exact same in 1940 as it is today. So it is actually highly likely that this shipyard right here has been around since Korea was occupied by the Empire of Japan for about 30 years, from 1910, well, really before that, but all the way up until the end of World War II. So it actually is a high likelihood that they're using Imperial Japanese infrastructure to launch this ship.
That doesn't seem very Juche to me.
That doesn't seem really Juche to me, considering that they're really anti-Japanese. Like y'all may not know this, but the Koreans actually don't like the Japanese. There actually is if we want to describe it as this would be more so accurate, they're racist against the Japanese, because the Japanese occupied the Koreas during the beginning of the 20th century, and they conducted some pretty bad atrocities against the Korean people in both North and South Korea. And the Japanese, for the large part back then, were highly racist to the Koreans and said that they were pretty much subhuman. And in response nowadays, the Koreans say that the Japanese are bastards for what they did back then. So there is not really a lot of good blood, even with South Korea and Japan, between each other for what happened back then. still to this day. But that is wild to see, because it isn't really Juche that they would use something like that from Imperial Japan to build a ship on and then try and launch it. So I guess the Empire of Japan is striking back at them from the grave at this point, taking out that destroyer. The Empire of Japan claiming destroyers of North Korea's in 2025, although the Empire of Japan ceased to exist in 1945. 80 years later, they're striking from the depths. But anyways, moving on from that, we spent enough time yapping about that one North Korean destroyer. It is time for us to get on back into some real news, not just comedy news like we're talking about with those clowns. We got to get into some real news out here in the world, like what's going on the Ukrainian battlefield, what's going on in Iran, and what's going on in China. But before we get to that, I do realize that we have some questions that we have to get to first. So Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so let's jump into our first super chat of the night. And this one goes to a longtime channel legend that we mention all the time on the channel, and that is Old Warrior. And thank you very much, Old Warrior, for the very generous $50 donation and helping to keep the channel running with that support. And he said, at last, we know where all those tigers went. Only seen a few, and take one from the chat.
Hey, I gotta say, we finally do know where all those tigers went. They went to Kubinka, and they also went to Bovington. Bovington's got a lot of them. Honestly, I'd say Bovington's a better museum than Kubinka. Kubinka looks like crap. Bovington's pretty cool. I gotta shout out our British folks over there at the Tank Museum, because they are really neat. And they have their own unique logo on Google. That's how big this museum is. But they have really cool displays. They have the only running tiger one in the world, which is pretty cool. Most of the vehicles in the Bovington tank, well, not all of them, but a good amount of them actually are running. And they also have an original Challenger 2 prototype out front. Don't climb on it, though. Actually, that's a Challenger 1, correction there. But still, a really cool museum. I'd recommend this one far more than the one in Kubinka in Russia. And also, it's British, so it's obviously better. But beyond that, I gotta say, thank you so much for the support, Old Warrior. Thank you for pointing out a little interesting note about Kubinka. And we will make sure to take one from the live chat in your honor, Old Warrior. And thank you so much for being here tonight and massively supporting the channel. But what do we got for a live chat, Matthew? What do we have?
All right, and this one's sponsored by Old Warrior. Goes to Judy from the live chat, who said, is China and Korea still arming Russia?
The Democratic People's Republic of Korea is continuing to support the Russian Federation and is supporting the entire war effort to this day. The People's Republic of China has not directly supported the Russian Federation in any direct means which can be measured here on the channel. So, while we can confirm that the Democratic People's Republic of Korea is continuing to support the Russians, we cannot confirm the same for the People's Republic of China. But I hope that addresses your question well, because, yeah, we do know that the North Koreans are continuing to support the Russians, but as far as actual material war support, we've never seen the Chinese directly support them. So the answer on that one is iffy, because we don't have enough proof to confirm it. But with North Korea, it's a definite yes. And so with that, I hope that does answer that well. Thank you once again for the massive support, Old Warrior, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Mark Young, another longtime channel viewer and legend. And thank you very much, Mark, for the £50 donation. And of course, it is in pounds. He must be a British viewer. And he did not leave a comment, but thank you very much, Mark, for the £50 and helping to also keep the channel running and keep it a nice longevity of a channel so we can report on the splitting ships that needs Flex Seal over there in North Korea. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'll tell you something, Matthew. The Admiralty in Britain would be absolutely ashamed if they launched a vessel and the keel literally ripped in two on the launch. That would be an absolute shame. I don't think that's ever happened in British history, actually. But beyond that, I have to thank you massively for support, Mark Young, all the way over from the United Kingdom, because that was thrown in £50, which is somewhat heavy, and actually is meeting the maximum union, I guess you could say, requirement for luggage weights. The luggage doesn't have to be less than £50 because the plane can't support the weight. It's less than £50 because it's got to be manhandled by someone, and they don't want people breaking their backs picking up luggage. And I got to say, a big thanks to you once again for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, without throwing in a comment but throwing in massive support, we would never be able to make this thing a reality every single night and keep the lights on. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that addresses that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the final question of this segment, and then we're going to be getting on into the rest of the news for the night.
Also, by the way, a real quick clarification on Old Warrior's $50 super chat. He said that he actually meant the failed armored car Tiger, like was at the checkpoint.
Oh, I thought you meant the Tiger tanks at Kubinka. Well, yeah, actually, that is pretty much where all the tigers have gone at this point. I think they've all been absorbed. I don't see any of them in the Russian army anymore. I think a lot of them have been absorbed by internal security services because it seems that they are not really rated armor-wise for actual frontline combat. So we've seen these mostly disappear from the Russian army, and the only ones we're seeing that are left are pretty much within the Russian internal security services. So now that I know what your super chat means by which tiger we're talking about, yeah, actually, that is an interesting kind of a phenomenon. I didn't mention that earlier, but that has been a clear evolution because crazily enough, they have enough tigers for the security services to use literally everywhere in Russia. We see them in Dagestan and literally anywhere. But crazily enough, there's not a single tiger to be found anymore in the Russian army in Ukraine, which is clearly showing us that that thing is not proof rated armor-wise for combat. And that's why pretty much in the Russian minds, it's as good for them to have a lot of with no armor as it is to have a tiger, because the tiger really also has no real armor either. But with that, hope that addresses that the best I can. And sorry for that misunderstanding, Old Warrior. I hate that I misunderstood that in that way, and I beg for your forgiveness. And I hope that I do not meet the same fate that all those North Korean ship workers are about to meet in Chongjin. But beyond that, big thanks to you so much once again. And we are on to the final question of this segment.
All right, and the final one of the segment goes to Bruce Grant, who puts in a $25 donation, and thank you, Bruce, as well for that support and also helping to keep the channel running. We do appreciate that, Bruce. He said, please consider having a Buy Me a Coffee as an additional way to support the channel, and as you're not just supporting Ukraine now, and number two, set up HQ near Ukraine, ? And I hear Romania is nice, and also Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, and hurrah.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support. And we would consider it, but we are Americans through and through. And also, I have to say that there are a lot of people that we've made unhappy out there in the world. We almost made India unhappy enough to nearly ban us on Twitter. So that was getting a little bit close. We've pissed off the North Koreans for sure. I bet you there's some little guys from, what is it, Bureau 34 or something that are out there wandering around looking for us. The Russians have us on a hit list, and I sure as hell know that the Chinese want to get us if they could. So generally our security is safe here in the United States. As long as we are in the United States of America, we are perfectly fine. Traveling out of the United States, though, we could end up running into some issues because security in Europe isn't really a big thing if you're careless. Like, there's a lot of people who cover the war that are in Europe right now, and they've been safe the entire time. But if you end up stepping on too many toes, and I don't know how many toes we've really stepped on, that can end up being a bit of a problem. But that still is an interesting idea, though, and I will keep it in mind because Romania is actually a pretty nice looking place. But beyond that, I do have to say thank you so much for enjoying the channel, and I also have to add in a little bit of extra tidbit as well. That Buy Me a Coffee is an interesting idea, but generally we try and keep the ways to support the channel as minimal as possible to cut down on confusion and also stop potential scammers from ripping off people through their own goodwill. And so we would probably not ever do a Buy Me a Coffee, but we do have a Patreon, and I think the link to that is in the description below the stream right now. And actually it is. Yeah, we actually do have the Patreon and a link in the description below. We don't really plug the Patreon much here on the stream, but if you do want to support the channel, and you don't want to do it through a YouTube Super Chat, you can support us on Patreon, which is another way to help to support the channel and help us to keep on running. But I do thank you so much once again for support and the kind recommendations, because I thank you very much for caring a lot about this channel and wanting to support it through multiple various ways. And that is one way that we can guarantee the channel is easy to support and help it to keep on running. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are going to be moving on out of this question segment and on into the remainder of the news, as we were able to see inside of China that there was a J-35 spotted flying through some region of the People's Republic of China, which we can see right there. Now, some people said that this is the first time we've seen the J-35 flying. That would actually be wrong. We actually saw that Pakistan had taken delivery of some J-35s during the Pakistan-India war that broke out a little while ago, and so we can confirm that they've already entered serial production a while ago, and have already been sent out for exports as well. Meanwhile, inside the Islamic Republic of Iran, we were able to hear that Iran is now stating that it will hold the U.S. responsible for any Israeli attack on its nuclear sites. Once again, showing that the Iranians are taking a very closed-off approach to this. Either you do what they want, and they run circles around you, or they start to act like a child who's throwing a fit. Moving on from that, though, and on into Ukraine, because as we have to kind of get into Ukraine because we've been getting a little bit long-winded tonight. I got to make sure to pick up the pace here on the news coverage. We were able to hear of an interesting development that apparently some security cameras were hacked by the Russian Federation. According to information that has come out today, Russia spied on arms supplies coming to Ukraine, hacking about 10,000 border surveillance cameras in NATO countries, trying to get an idea of what really was coming into Ukraine. It's once again showing that Russia's cyber war efforts are moving on into Europe as a whole, and they're trying to figure out a way to be able to get in there and figure out what the Ukrainians are getting exactly. Meanwhile, over the city of Kyiv, we have been able to get the air defense report for the day. We were able to hear that 128 drones were launched along with one Iskander overnight, and over the course of the night, the Ukrainians were able to shoot down directly 74 drones, and were also able to take down an additional 38 through electronic warfare interference, meaning that a significant number of them, about 118 of the 129 drones launched, were shot down, meaning that only 10 drones and one Iskander made it through the air defense. Moving on from that and on into the area of the Kursk Oblast, we were able to see the Ukrainians conducting airstrikes on Russian positions inside of the town of Goevo, which we can see right here. And we see them slamming the targets. Holy smokes. Look at that.
They are slamming.
And they are absolutely slamming them. Slamming them hard, I tell you. By seeing that clip. And moving on from that and further down the line, we have also been able to see the Ukrainians hitting some drones in the anti-aircraft role, which we can see in these clips right here. We see them hitting multiple Zalas and supercams. I like how they call them supercams. It's like super wow. Like that little guy who cuts up the steaks and like makes it a whole thing. He's kind of like a rip-off Salt Bay. And I think Salt Bay went under as well recently, I think.
Went under?
Huh?
Wait, he went under? Like, what do you mean?
Like, you know, like all of his restaurants are pretty much dried up at this point.
Oh, I thought you meant like he had passed away or something. I was like, I didn't hear that.
No, he went under, like, business-wise. No, he didn't drop dead. But also, moving on from that, we did get the Russian casualty report for the past 24 hours, and we weren't able to see a drop of Bobcat skid steer.
No, not even a drop, not even an inkling, not even a morsel of a skid steer. But tell us more.
And Miss Disa has not so great news for us to hear today on the casualty report, because this is actually the lowest troop loss that we've seen since April of last year. And other categories are also around to those kinds of record lows. They did get more tanks than in the last 4 days, but that was the only kind of a number that was higher than the others. Still, the losses were pretty decent, but it wasn't a huge day for the Russian army in terms of taking losses, as 870 Russian soldiers have been wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 5 APCs, 99 supply trucks, 4 main battle tanks, 32 artillery pieces, 105 drones, and that was it. Still a pretty decent day, but not the highest one that we've seen anytime recently. Moving on from that, now the casualty report, and on into the northern area of Ukraine, we also were able to see some Russians getting blasted up here near the Oskol River. They attempted to cross, and instead of getting crossed, they got crucified. They seem to be floating down the river very gently. Oh, and they just got blown away. Now it's not gentle. Now it's not gentle, Benny.
Oh dear, bleed. The water is smoking.
Bro, when it hits so hard, it starts smoking the water. But moving on down the line a little bit more towards the Kupiansk area, we also get to see the 15th Artillery Reconnaissance Unit also hitting some Russian vehicles as well. When you see here that they're hitting an S-300 system. A kablooey, and there it goes. A ratatouille.
I bet the Russians wish they had a little Ratatouille in the hat at this point. They needed some help.
Ratatouille, the soldier. He's up there, like, guiding the guy's arms as he fires the AK. We can also see him hitting a KSM.
Next thing you know, the Russians will be finding rogue rats and putting them in hats. Telling, this is a new strategy, we're going to let the rat yank their hair and they're going to tell us how to win. Win for us, the rat. Do what you do.
Ratatouille. But man, I gotta say, man, Rogue Rat actually sounds like a good clothing brand name.
Rogue Rat, like a gym rat.
Honestly, man, that's a better name than FUBU. I mean, I don't even know what the hell FUBU is, really. Like, what does that mean?
Man, Fubu used to be big back in the day, man.
Man, Fubu fell off hard. Kind of like how Kevin O'Leary fell off hard. How you can pay him like $1,000 to plug your product now on some like website. I forgot what website it is. Haven't you heard about that?
Cameo?
Yeah, I think it's something like that, but he has it on there, man. If you pay him $1,000, he'll spend a whole minute advertising your product, pretending that he has like a great relationship with you, and saying that your product is just beyond above board and the greatest product ever. Like I saw that the other day, I was like, no freaking way. I was like, so this guy supposedly has hundreds of millions of dollars, but he's so desperate for cash, he'll do $1,000 cameo for a minute.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Also, people were saying Fubu stands for us by us. I didn't actually know that. I didn't know what that meant.
Man, that still sounds like a goofy name to me. It's kind of like Packard. Like, what the hell is a Packard? Like, they had decent cars back in the day, but still, what the hell does that name mean? It just sounds weird. But anyways, moving on from that and down into the Kremenna area, I guess Fubu's beyond my time. But I just got to generally be honest with y'all, folks. I got interested in Shark Tank enough that I started looking into the background of the people who were on Shark Tank. And beyond that one guy, Robert, who is all right, every single other one, I just don't really like him too much because they are not really upstanding people morally, in my opinion. So I don't really like Fubu really because of the guy attached to it. Kind of like I really don't like most of them, because when you look beyond the whole facade that they put on Shark Tank, they're actually pretty crappy people. But moving on from that and down to Kremenna, we did get to see a Ukrainian drone thread the needle. It flew right through a puncture in an anti-drone net and was able to hit the target.
You know, the simple defense to the stalker drone is to simply get a restraining order in Russia, Bliat. The only problem is the courts are not open and that they are not for you.
And they also found a literal loophole in net. See, they go around corner. They found loophole.
It's not illegal now. It's totally legal. Look at this. They're going in. It's only legal in Ukraine. But there they go, going down, going in. Oh dear. Oh man, they got an interior view.
Man, look at that. Pretty impressive right there. But moving on from that, very impressive clip, mind I say. Very nice hit. Moving on from that and down towards Verkno-Kamyanske, we also get to see them hitting Russian forces down here. And we see a Russian wandering around in the crater. He's trying to move around the net, but the net got moved for him for free.
Someone said you said very ignorant and racist about the Fubu comments. Nobody said anything about a race. I don't even know how that even connects into
That's so goofy. Like, if I say something like, I don't really like the name Cheerios, it makes no sense. Someone's going to come in here and say it's racist somehow. Like I just don't. I think the name sounds goofy. Like, it just does. Like, I don't know what it stood for, and I don't really care what it stands for. Fubu, in its own right, sounds goofy. Like, to me, I don't really like the name. It sounds dumb. But we can see here the damage that was caused. A D-20 was, of course, knocked out. And that is largely the end of the clip, but still, successful strikes across the board. Moving on from that and into Horovivka, we were also able to see a Russian TOS being destroyed today as well. And take a look at that. They're firing off the MLRS right there. But we can see that this soon, it will not be an MLRS, it will become the thermobaric itself.
Someone said everything is racist, I suppose. Honestly, like when somebody says, "Oh, that's racist," and then race was never even mentioned at all, like it wasn't even like a topic of discussion, not even remotely. That's like a cheap way to try to win an argument to me. It's like, okay, that person is like has no like ability to argue a point if they're immediately resorting to something that has nothing to do with what was being discussed.
Yeah, like let's see. I could say something like, like this was one that was actually pretty stupid. I remember someone asked us, do we like Indian food? And I was like, I don't really like the combination of spices. It's just not really my thing. Like just left at it as it is. And And so someone came in and said I was racist because I didn't like Indian food. Like, I can't have preferences of what I like for food. Like, I'm not Mexican. I like Mexican food. It's like, you know, like, that doesn't really make any sense at all. It's like that's just a lack of comprehension and a lack of intelligence to say something that stupid. It's like, people have tastes. Like, a lot of people might not like American food. That doesn't mean they're racist against Americans. That just means they don't like the food. It's not for their palate. They don't like it. You know, it's like, that's what that means. Like, a lot of people do say Indian food has a bit of kind of like an acquired thing for some people. Some people will love it, some people won't. Kind of like every food. Some people like chicken, some people like steak. That's a preference thing. So it's a little bit stupid to say, you know, like, oh, I don't really like beef. Oh, so you must hate cattle farmers. It's like, no, it's like, I just, like, maybe they don't like the taste of beef. I don't know. But anyways, moving on from that. And further on down the line towards Pokrovsk, we also got to see the Ukrainians hitting some Russians in Pokrovsk through the Magyar's Birds unit. And we can see here the drones continuing to knock out the Russians. And Toro Verde said, I don't like Italian food. I like Italian food. I think Italian food's pretty good. A food that I really like, I love Japanese food. All Japanese food is great. Chinese food, traditional Chinese food, actually can kind of be a hit and miss kind of a thing. Americanized Chinese food's pretty alright, but also a little bit too sweet sometimes. But still, I like it. Let's see. Indian food, not really for me. I've never really had a good dish. Maybe it's never been cooked well, but I've just never really liked any of it. But let's see. What else? German food's pretty alright. I've never really had French food. British food's great. Love British food. American food, hamburgers, hot dog stuff, that's just a staple around here. But yeah, this is generally my lay of the land of food. But we can see them here continuing to hit an endless amount of Russian vehicles with the drones.
The Wormbusters Brigade is back at it again.
Man, they busting them worms and putting them on hooks.
I've never understood the Wormbusters logo, like the W and the B. I'm like, how'd they come up with that?
I don't really know either. The cease and desist attorneys are fuming, though. Moving on from that, and on to our next clip, we also get to see a new Ukrainian bike assault unit. I gotta say, folks, I remember when the Russians started doing this, and everyone said it was a bad thing. The Ukrainians just started their first bike assault unit, so if we're working off the same metric, that might be showing that the Ukrainians are running out of resources, but it looks like they actually did make some progress, at least here in this clip around the Pokrovsk front, so that was an interesting note. So here's the clip.
What? Are they on motorcycles?
Yeah, they're on dirt bikes.
Huh. They're doing pretty good riding through there. Oh, they had a little collision. That's okay, though.
Also checks at the sin said, isn't it hilarious that Britain fought and colonized for hundreds of years, pretty much for spices, yet they have the blandest food in the world? It is a little bit weird with that, but what I will say in defense of British food is that, yes, it is bland, but it's a very comforting kind of bland that is very enjoyable. Like, it's really one of the few bland foods that I actually would say it's all right, unless if you're talking about, like, one of those things like, you know, beans on toast. I don't really get behind that much, but all the other British foods that we had over there, it actually was quite good. Bland, yeah, but it was good.
I would kind of like to try that beans on toast. They have like a special Heinz baked beans like recipe for it, and they just put it right on top of the toast. It kind of looks like it's pretty good.
It does look like it'd kind of be interesting to try, but I don't really know if I'd like that too much. One thing I can tell you that I don't like that's British is the black pudding, which is the blood sausages. Do not like that. It didn't taste good to me. It tasted like nickels, and I was like, that's enough for me. I think I'm not going to eat that again. So someone's about to tell me I'm racist against, like, the Celts or something now because I didn't like the blood sausage. Like it's going to come around the corner at this point. But anyways, we see the motorbike assault battalion doing a pretty interesting and efficient job, actually, out there on the field, which is a little shocking since we've seen the Russians pulling off tactics like these for a while, and they've never gone well. Or You're Taking My Life said, mushy peas? Yeah, I like mushy peas. Mushy peas are pretty good.
I like Nando's. Like, I know that it's not like I don't think it's UK food. I think Nando's is in the UK. That's why I associate it with there. But that's pretty good stuff. Like those like mint peas they got and all that stuff, and like the let's see, they had some other side. I can't remember what it was, but it was really tasty.
I think Nando's is Peruvian.
It could be. That was really tasty though. I wish we had one of those nearby. We don't have any of that in Alabama though. No Nando's.
Actually, it's a South African multinational restaurant that specializes in Portuguese flame grilled peri peri style chicken. So, kind of its own thing. But Nando's is pretty good. I actually remember Nando's being a Washington, D.C. thing, Matthew, because the first time we ever had it was in Washington, D.C.
Yeah. I want to get that again. I liked it personally. I thought it was real simple and real good. Kind of like Chipotle a little bit.
Man, I gotta say. I liked it. It actually was pretty decent. Well, let's see here. Genital said, blood sausage all day, every day. Ugh, I just couldn't stand the flavor. It was a rough one. Maybe it was a badly cooked one or something, but I didn't like it. And then someone else said, let's see. Shepherd's pie. Oh, shepherd's pie is great. I love shepherd's pie. Let's see. Have you tried haggis?
Oh.
No.
Did you see them? They just like took that dirt bike in and just threw it down on its side. Like that thing's not going to run again. Like it's gonna mess that bike up.
I don't really know a lot about bikes, so I'd take your word on that. That might mess it up. But hey,
Yeah, if you went it sideways and you just flop on the ground like that, you're going to jack the handlebars up. That's number one. Even though you're in the soft ground, they'd possibly mess the forks up or something. And also, you're going to mess up the flow of oil through the engine too. If you just leave it running and sit on the side like that, you'll just completely ruin the bike.
interesting. I didn't know that, but I don't really think they're caring about that too much because it is a war. But maybe they are. So
Well, they won't
maybe,
save their vehicles. They're like surely not just disposable bikes.
true, perhaps. But we also get to see the 10th Separate Mountain Assault Brigade knocking out Russian drones near to the area of Velika Novosilka. Matthew throwing in the sound effects. Oh!
Oh man, look, that's gonna mess those forks up too when they hit the drone like that.
And we see them trying to get down there and get the drone. It's deployed to shoot, so there's really no point in getting it, but they're going to get it for pride purposes anyways.
Also, I see people saying dirt bikes are built for that treatment. Honestly, I thought they were like street bikes. Like if you said a street bike, which is what I have experience on, I've never had a legitimate dirt bike. If you do that to a street bike, you let it sit on the side like that with the engine running for like a minute or something, you've starved the engine of oil and you potentially destroyed the bike. So that's serious. That's why when you get in a bike wreck, most people, even if they're in pain, run over to the bike to go quickly turn it off. If you've like flipped it or it's gone sideways or something, because you'll just run the engine doing that really quick.
I didn't know any of that about motorcycles. But we can also see here the Ronin unit doing its job on the Zaporizhia front to knock out Russian forces. We can see that they've already found a couple here near to the streamline. They're about to drop the drone down on top of them.
Everybody's saying dirt bikes are like that. Honestly, it sounds like they're pretty resilient. Actually, I've never been on a dirt bike. I'd be curious to ride one though.
Let's see here. See a lot of people talking about different kinds of British foods. Most British foods are really good. Like I will say that. Bland, but they're good. But I'm more so into spicier foods. Like I like spice. Spice is not a bad thing at all. For a while I was actually dousing everything pretty much in either Pepper X sauce from the Hot One show. Or I was getting, what was the other one, Matthew? What was the one that we got from Buc-ee's? What was it called? Scorpion pepper? Yeah, I was putting that on a lot of stuff too. Hot sauce is great. Spicy foods are really good. But I do appreciate bland foods when they're actually good. And you see this drone is trying to spot those Russians, and it just spotted them, and it took care of them.
This is like almost like Pripyat.
Welcome to the old Soviet town of Pripyat. I know they're about to find another one here. And Adam Glazer, well, you're nuts, Enforcer. It wasn't that bad. Like, people make it out to be really bad, you know, when they, like, eat it on the show, and they're like, oh my god. Honestly, it wasn't that bad. I mean, yeah, you know, the first time and the second time, like, it'd make your eyes water. But after you had it a couple of times, it just honestly was just kind of like a hot sauce. So, you know, it was fine to me. I don't know, maybe I've had a lot of exposure to lead or something in my life, so I really can't taste that good. I don't know. But it wasn't that bad to me, at least. Scorpion pepper was delicious. I love scorpion pepper.
I like those hot peppers just for a little bit, and then you realize it's messing your gut up, and then you never want it really much again.
Matthew was short-lived on that. I appreciated it. Still do to this day. To this day! Moving on out of that clip in the Zaporizhzhia front and down to Dezhonkoy. We also got to see that the base in Dezhonkoy was hit. Oh. Oh, man! A lot of people yelling on the radio.
Вон он летит, блядь!
It's coming over there, look!
Any second now.
Throttling up, throttling down.
Давай, мужики, в зеленку!
Citizen, beware!
Ложись! Ложись!
Oh, you hear some small arms fire. Oh, look, the dog's running too. And then they hit.
Everybody and the dog.
Everyone and their dog was running from that one.
Охуеть, блядь. Вот это доброе утро.
They all say the same things every single time. Anyways, moving on from that, and out of the area of Crimea, it is time for us to get on to Kyiv and get to the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 1184 of the War News Stream. And so, without further ado, here's the speech. Peach!
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці, українки. Коротко про сьогодні. Підготовка обміну. Були доповіді розвідки та Служби безпеки України щодо списків, які передали росіяни. Конкретні деталі опрацьовують. Ще будуть у нас наради. Провів тривалу нараду з нашими військовими, головком Сирський, керівник Генштабу ГНАТО, всі розвідки, Міністерство оборони. Про ситуацію на нашому фронті, наші перспективи, наша активність, яку ми готуємо. Також ми обговорили військову основу дипломатії, наступної технічної зустрічі. Ми працюємо, щоб зустріч відбулася якнайшвидше. Наш український інтерес – не затягувати війну, але бути готовими до будь-якого розвитку ситуації. Світові очевидно, що саме Росія винна, що війна досі триває. Україна готова до максимально швидких кроків, реального припинення вогню і встановлення нової архітектури безпеки. Ми зі свого боку все опрацьовуємо. Потрібна дзеркальна готовність Росії. Зараз її немає. І без тиску світу цього не змінити. Нашу частину тиску забезпечуємо і найголовніше нашою оборонною, активними діями. Я хочу подякувати всім нашим воїнам за стійкість, за реальні результати. Дякую за далекобійність, хлопці. Провів сьогодні нараду з нашими урядовцями, прем'єр-міністр України, віце-прем'єр-міністри, команда Офісу. Ми обговорили найважливіші економічні кроки, що може дати більше стабільності нашим людям, дати довгостроково. Робочі місця, технологічний розвиток та гарантовані соціальні можливості для наших людей. Це три ключові пріоритети. І сьогодні ж продовжив розмови з нашими європейськими партнерами. Підтримка перемовного процесу, підтримка припинення вогню, підтримка усіх наших спільних форматів роботи в Європі. Я запросив сьогодні Грецію, Північну Македонію, Сербію, Словенію, Молдову взяти в наступному саміті Україна Південно-Східна Європа, взяти участь. Я дякую всім за готовність робити ще більш змістовним цей наш формат. Попереду сьогодні ще кілька розмов з нашими партнерами. Я хочу подякувати усім, хто з нами, хто з Україною і хто готує нові пакети нашої оборонної підтримки. Слава Україні!
And with that, that is the end of the speech. And before we move on into the next thing, I have to say that we had a very concerned viewer here that brought in something important, and I'd have to agree. I found this quite concerning. Andrew L. said, I can't understand a thing that Zelensky, is saying. And I'd have to agree. It appears that whatever language he's speaking in, it's clearly gibberish because it ain't English. I'd have to agree with you. I don't know what the hell he's saying. He's just speaking a damn proper language. But beyond that, that is the end of the stream right there, pretty much, folks, for the news. We're moving on into the second segment now, which is a fun one because we get to talk to all of y'all. And, it's a real fun one, folks, because we talk in a real language. We talk in the language of the founding fathers here. None of those hooky-pooky languages like whatever the hell that is. I don't know, gibberish. We talk in American here, and we are going to be getting on into this question segment and talking to all of y'all in American because we aren't having none of that weird stuff around here. I've heard rumors, Matthew, that there's actually this language out there that a whole ton of people speak, man, and it's the language of a certain kind of orange. They call it Mandarin. I don't know what the hell everyone's talking like. I don't even know what the hell Mandarin would sound like. But the last time I saw Mandarins, they were hanging from a tree, and they weren't speaking nothing because it's a fruit. So let me go get that. There. That's what. I don't know how the hell people speak this because it's a fruit. So I don't understand it, folks. I just don't get it.
It's a very good fruit. I can speak Mandarin.
Really?
Yeah. It's a fantastic fruit. Have you ever had some?
Could you speak it in a sentence?
Juicy orange mandarins.
That sounds kind of believable, actually. That sounds like a foreign language to me.
That sounds just like my fine Italian that I bring out from time to time.
Man, I'll tell you what, man, I can speak some damn fine Italian. You want to hear it right now?
Sure.
Buongiorno, comandante, espresso macchiato, damn it.
Well, I'll be damned.
You just met yourself a damn fine-blooded Italian right there, man. You ain't gonna ever meet another Italian like that again. Hey, boy.
Down, that son of a bitch is speaking Italian.
I tell you what, you know what, man? They actually call me a polyglot, man. I can speak all kinds of languages. You know, man, I could give it a shot at French, man. You want me to give it a shot at French?
You got some of that Francois in your system.
Merci, bonjourne, como se dice Paris.
They'll be begging for mercy after hearing a lick of that accent.
Man, you know something, man? I consider myself a bit of a French man myself. I cover everything in Dijon.
That's good mustard.
Man, that's good mustard, man. I heard that there's an old saying in the city of Dijon over there in France. They say, cut the mustard, because the whole city's made of it. Oh, dang, I'm on a roll, dang. Let's go look at that city. What the hell? That ain't made of mustard. That's actually kind of pretty cool. I didn't expect Dijon to look like that.
That does look pretty good right there. I'm not going to lie.
That's a lot of graffiti.
Yeah, that is.
Man.
Mustard on the beat.
Mustard on the beat.
Oh!
Man, Super U Drive. Man, this place is damn fine. They got a place called Mont Chapit. Man, I ain't chapping nothing. I put on cream. Let's see. They got Les Perrieres. Man, they got that Fontaine de Ouch.
Man, they got that Evian water, it's harvested from, I think, the French Alps. They like to get it out and put it right in the bottle.
Man, they got that Parc Chevrolet right down there, man. It damn be real. That's like Chevrolet and Renault teamed together to create a park for both companies. They call it Parc Chevrolet. Man, it's impressive right there. I got to tell you. And then they also got the town of La Champagne. I don't even know what the hell that is right there, Champagne. Damn, son, that sounds like some sort of a fine wine, like champagne or something. And then they got Long Vic. That's like a Crown Vic, but extended into a limo, or they call it a Long Vic in France. And then they got Planet Walk. What's in Planet Walk? Oh shoot, that actually
Oh
is
my
pretty cool.
god, that's nice. I was expecting like some cheap fast food restaurant. This is high end.
Look happier, kid. You're living in a nice place. Like it's like, let's see.
Eating fine dining and looking like he's being tortured.
Dude, this kid is eating the finest food I've ever seen. He's looking like, "Hello, darkness, my old friend." It's like, bro,
Man,
be
I'll tell you
happy.
what, when I was that age, I would have loved to have some food like this. This is some fine food right here.
Jeez, dude, look at, I gotta tell you, man, French people actually do eat well. Their MREs are apparently some of the finest in the world, really, you know, from what I've heard in the army, because their palate's so refined. But really impressive, man. This is a buffet?
A buffet, I can only imagine it probably costs like $100 a sitting in here.
How much does this cost? They got the
Hey,
robot!
look at a robot.
They got the robot!
Hey, look at that. That's
Oh
pretty
my
cool.
god,
That's
it's
like
carrying
real
around
neat.
liquors, like beverages and
Oh.
cocktails and stuff. Oh my goodness.
Mhm.
That's
That's what I'm
crazy.
talking about.
Man, that's crazy, right? How much does this cost? 20 to 30 euros for that.
That's it. That's all.
That's it. So like $35 at the most.
That seems almost unbelievable.
That is unreal. They're eating that well for 35 US dollars? That I'm thinking, you know what, Matthew? I think
Bonjour. I might have to turn into a French man because this stuff's looking real tasty in Dijon.
Bonjour, monsieur. Like, I gotta move to Francais, you know what I mean? Oh my,
Commandant.
that's crazy there. I didn't expect to see any of that in what is the average price of food in France, people? Because now I'm interested. Let's not go to Paris because that's going to be inflated to hell because it's the biggest city in the country. Let's go to Amiens and let's take a look around there. Well, can we? They got a McDonald's. Everyone's got a McDonald's. How about this restaurant? I will not try to pronounce it. They say it's got $2 on it. Au fil de l'eau. I don't even know how to pronounce it. That's wrong. But what is that? Doesn't look like
Very good meat.
it looks like good meat. I'm not like I don't know what kind of cut of meat that is though. That's a creme de brulee, I think. I'm not really sure. That's a dog
Pate.
patty. that's a dog pate for a dog. Let's see. Oh, that looks good.
That's a cheesecake, I think. Well, maybe. I don't know. I've never seen kiwi and whatever that other thing goes on the whatever.
I think they eat pretty well in France, actually. What about this restaurant? So this is 30 to 50 euros to eat here. They all look really nice. Like, they actually look very nice on the inside. So what do they have here at this restaurant? So charcuterie boards seem to be the thing here.
That's very tasty looking.
Yeah, that looks pretty good. Oh, that looks really good. Man, honestly, man, it looks like the French have some great food. Man, honestly, man, this making me kind of like envy the French because we don't have anything like this around here mostly. There are some okay restaurants in Birmingham. Like, there's not a lot of them though, and certainly none up at this kind of caliber at that kind of price. So a little bit interesting with that. And they are big into alcohol over there, man. Every single place looks like they get a liquor license for free, because everyone's serving it. So interesting with that, but all the food looks really good. So very impressive with that. What do the French cities look like Amiens? Because this was close once to the front lines in World War I. What does it look like today? Oh, it's actually quite nice, really.
Yeah, looks like the war's over.
Man, the damn war's over. When did it end? 1918? What year is it now? 2025? Well, you're just wondering. Hell, it could keep going
Oh,
on.
look, the Starbucks survived the war. That's a good thing. I'm sure the GIs were very thankful that it survived.
Man, look at this, man. They got Lafrag over there, man. It's just like, it really is still the war. They got a whole store for hand grenades. What's this down here? That's that damn pharmacy.
Pharmacy.
Man, then they got that Alpaca with that tobacco impresse.
Oh, interesting. They also have Jimmy Fairley. I hope I dressed that fairly well.
No, man, that's when you say, is Jimmy Fallon okay? You say, Jimmy Fairly. Like, you know, it's just like,
Or it's like when you're talking about Mr. Beast and say, oh, Jimmy fairly paid his employees.
Have you seen what he did lately? I'm not even going to get into it, but it's an interesting thing.
He did he replicated the Mr. Beast hood meme, and he like put on like a hoodie and stuff.
Yeah, he did. It was interesting, but let's see. They got that E-Tam. That's like a J-Dam in America, but you know, it's in France.
Pretty is sexy, I must say.
Oh man, sex sells, you know. Naf. That's like NAFO without the O. Like, that's and then you got Armand Thierry. Interesting places. I don't.
Man, they take their truckers to a new level, though. You know how the truckers over here, like, they've got soft hands, boy. They've got soft hands. They're not real men. Their trucks over here literally just called man.
That's a good one. That's actually a good one. Man, what else do they have? Honestly, man, I'm not going to lie. This is actually a really nice place. Like, I'm actually very impressed with it. And I also like the fact that there really isn't a lot of cars around here, unless if they're like delivery trucks or vans dropping off stuff for the stores. So you can actually wander around without getting run over.
Notice how many of those like anti-vehicle barriers that they have up. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is really interesting. I gotta say, I actually like the idea of returning cities back to the way they used to be before the car and making them pretty much entirely pedestrian. I like that idea. It looks good, and it also cuts down on, you know, getting run over by some clown who's on their phone who's not really paying attention a lot in the city. Because I remember
plowed by a lunatic.
Yeah, because I remember back in the day when we were going to UAB, I almost got run over multiple times by clowns who would run through stop signs, red lights, and all that kind of stuff. They were never paying attention, and I would always, you know, get out of the way, of course, because I was paying attention, but they were not. And if you weren't paying attention, you're just going to get run over. But still, this is like, honestly, man, France is very nice. A lot nicer than a lot of people would lead you to believe. Because a lot of people say France is a modern day hellhole, and also people say that about Britain too. And I don't really think that's true for either of them. I think they're both incredibly nice. Like, let's go look at Caen. This is famous of D-Day fame here in America. So let's go here. Let's look at this town.
I fought in this city.
Oh yeah, in Call of Duty World War II. Yeah. Well, it doesn't look bad. It looks pretty nice again. Like, the streets are well kept. I'm always impressed when streets... Where the hell did we just end up? Like, this isn't even the same place. What... Why am I, like, shape-shifting through the city? We're not even moving down the street. We're, like, going to totally different places. What is... Monocrips? Well, I know one person who would qualify for that, and that's Hot Dog Man. Aw, man. He's already beefing with some guy in his own hometown. I don't even know how he does it. He's not even running a channel anymore, and somehow he got into another beef. It's like, I don't even know how. But man, these places are actually quite nice. I like the beige color of the stones that they used to build most of these buildings.
Yeah, it's very federal.
Yeah, it does look federal, doesn't it?
Yeah, it kind of has that Watergate look over there, especially that building over there on the left.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that one. Classic style.
That is classic.
Classic. Very classic. I like it. What else? What else? I'm interested in this.
Oh, jerseys.
Jersey? You want to see the island of Jersey?
Yeah, it's right next to Guernsey.
Guernsey. Man, this is where those Jersey dairy cows come from.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. That's why they're named that, and that's also why this is Old Jersey. If you ever wonder why the hell's New Jersey, where's Old Jersey? This is Old Jersey. But let me drop y'all down here. This is actually British. Funnily enough, this is what it looks like.
Not too bad looking. Kind of looks like the New Jersey, but the Old Jersey is looking pretty decent.
Yeah, Old Jersey's not bad. Old Jersey's pretty nice. Also, look, it's Diamond Chinese restaurant. Nice. We like to see it. But beyond that, that's Jersey. Here's what the countryside looks like in Jersey.
Oh, that's very nice. I like that. I like the architectures.
It's very British. Hence the Britain part. It's been British actually ever since 1066 when William the Bastard became William the Conqueror. This was
William the Bastard.
That's what he was actually called. That was his technical name, was William
Damn.
the Bastard, because he was a bastard child. So he just got that
Oh,
title
okay.
by default.
I
So
thought you meant like he was a bastard, like he was a terrible like attitude person. But yeah, okay.
no, back then, if you were like born out of wedlock, you were just the bastard. Like so, like
Oh,
if you were a child born out of wedlock in that period in history, you would be Matthew the Bastard. Like it's not an offensive thing; it's literally just your name. It's like honestly, it's a little like that. It's a little bit
a
messed
little
up.
crass.
But yeah, it's like that's just really straightforward. It's like no one ever eased you back in the Middle Ages about he was born out of wedlock, in a single mother family. They're like, no, that's Matthew the Bastard right there. Yeah, he didn't have a dad. Like he just didn't have a dad growing up. He's just raised by his mom. It's like that's a honestly, I don't really get the whole thing behind that back then. It just doesn't make any sense. But that's how they did it. But he stopped being the bastard. Like everyone stopped calling him that when he killed King Harold of England and took the British throne as his own. And then he became William the Conqueror, which is how he's known today. But before he won the Battle of Hastings in 1066, he was William the Bastard. Like that was his thing. That was who he was. But he actually owned the Kingdom of Normandy. And although the English would later lose pretty much all of their holdings that they originally had in France, which included Normandy and Aquitaine to the south, they still would retain the islands of Guernsey and Jersey all the way till the present day, which is why they're British, but they're a part of France, but they're still controlled by the British to this day.
That's interesting. That is very interesting. I wouldn't want to be called anything the bastard, though. But I must say that. But he's not so much of a bastard because he owns a lot of land. So I guess the people that wanted to share in the wealth probably weren't calling him the bastard.
Well, man, back then, man, people were brutal, man. Like, if you were, like, mentally slow, they would just call you, like, Matthew the Lame. Like, just to keep, like, giving you
Oh,
examples on
damn.
your own. Like, if you seem slow, people are like, oh, that's Matthew the Lame. Or if you're blind, it's Matthew the Blind. Like, it's like, what's
Yeah.
up with these
Gotta be
naming
Matthew throw the hands next.
Matthew be slinging hands.
Matthew slinging knuckles.
Also, man, there was like names like that, like Matthew the Brawler. Like if you were like a person who just fought a lot, it's like Matthew the Brawler, or Matthew the Rake, which a rake meant not a good person, stuff like that. But like you just got that, and also, man, that's how a lot of last names came around, was by occupation or something along those lines, or something significant about you. So if you lived on a hill, you were Matthew Hill, and that's how you got your last name.
That's interesting. Yeah, I kind of knew that. Like, honestly, I kind of knew that. Like, some last names are very straightforward. Like, let's see, what's one of them? Like
Smith.
Johnson train worker. Like, that's obviously they were a train worker. Let's see here, Johnson truck driver. That's another one. The last name truck driver. You know what they're up to. Let's see here. Let's see. I can't think of any more. For some reason, they're going over my head right now. I can't think of them. There's like names of occupations like that I can't think of right now. Give me some examples.
A blacksmith, a tanner.
I've never heard anybody with the last name Tanner.
I've heard of a couple of people with the last name Tanner.
Let's see, people with last names of occupations. It's going over going over my head right now. Let's see here.
Baker.
Baker. Yeah, Baker's one of them. Miller, who operated the mill. Taylor, who someone made the clothes. Clark, clerk. They was working in the church. You got people like Fisher, like Fisher Price, Fisherman. Mason, like the stoneworker. So yeah, there's a lot of people that just have like last names that are just straight up. I've never heard anybody with the last name Farmer. That's a new one to me. But
I've heard
no,
of
also,
someone. I heard of someone with the last name Farmer before. Only once though, and Fletcher is also another one.
Butcher. So somebody out there's got the last name Butcher. I've never heard that in my life
That
either.
would be
Like, what is that? Like Matthew Butcher.
Dude, that would go so hard. It's like, bro, what's your last name? I'm Andrew Butcher. It's like, that's brutal sounding, man. That sounds great, honestly. But let's see. Let's see. Someone said Johnson the Big. That's actually a pretty good one. Oh man. But let's see. And then also there were other names. Like sometimes you'd be named after hills or mountains or any significant geographic features that you lived around. Or you'd be named after a clan, or if you're from if you have a complicated last name, which Matthew and me actually both have, generally that's something that came from royalty, because they'd always come up with these goofy names that were really abstract, like people these days spelling Ashley as Ashleigh, kind of like that thing. Back then, that was a big thing. So our last name is actually a royal last name from North Wales from like 1,000 years ago. And it just means wolf cub. Like that's the actual meaning of the name. If you went back to its original spelling in Welsh, which it's like dumb, because back then everyone was going with last names of their trades, occupations, kind of something that they were around that would be significant, that people will remember them for, and then ours is just wolf cub. But it's still neat that it came from a royal family that like pretty much died off almost as quickly as it was created. It was created about 1,000 years ago, existed for about 170 years, and then it got dissolved by the British when they invaded the rest of North Wales, and they just absorbed that whole dynasty. So kind of cool with that. But anyways, man, hot dog man, the punk man.
Man, Punkman. That's hot dog man Punkman right there. Look, it's like, oh man, that is my occupation after all.
Man, you know what my last name would be right now if like I got a new one? It would be Enforcer the Yapper.
The yapper. Oh man.
It's Enforcer the Yapper Man. Doot doot. Enforcer the Yapper Man. Doot doot. But anyways, with that, I hope we had a fun little talk about that. It's an interesting one. But with that, it is time for us to get on into some interesting questions, because I have rabbit holed on that plenty. But anyways, also Monster Lab stuff. I love Welsh folklore. Yeah, Welsh folklore is great. I love Welsh folklore. It's an interesting one, with all kinds of interesting stories in it. But one of the ones that I find neat is that they say that the corgis are actually cavalry for fairies, which I don't really know who came up with that in Wales. I don't know the origin to that story, but I've heard it before, and I thought that was really cute. Because if you see a corgi, they're really cute, and to think that they're like included in like fairy tales like that, or stuff from the area, it's like that's a pretty neat kind of a cute thing to think of a corgi being used as like a cavalry, well, as cavalry. But anyways, with that, we are on to the actual question. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so jumping to our first super chat of the last segment here. This one goes to Pagetto666, who puts in a $28 donation. And thank you very much, Pagetto, for that support. And also leaving the kind words in my video today. I saw that, and I do appreciate that. And thank you for the support tonight as well. And he said, nice show, gentlemen. And take an interesting question from the live chat, please.
Hey, and thank you, Pagetto. And thank you for enjoying the show. We try our best. We try our best, and I hope that tonight we met the mark. We had great news. We had a lot of people here tonight, and I'm happy to know that we were able to get all the news out to you all. Because crazily enough, tonight we had a peak viewership of 10,000 people. I don't know how we always break into the 5 digits on total live stream viewership every night most times, but we are absolutely honored to have a lot of people like you here, Pagetto, that really do enjoy what we're doing and really enjoy the way that we cover the news. And we will make sure to take an interesting live chat question in your honor, Pagetto. And so what do we got, Matthew? What do we got?
All right, so this one goes to Joe Garrow, who said, where does North Korea get their money from?
North Korea gets their money through illegal operations. They traffic drugs, they traffic people, actually. They do anything really that would be underhanded and illegal, including illegal arms dealing, to pretty much make any money. Most of what they do is very underhanded. There is some legitimate above-board operations like logging camps in Siberia that they're involved in, still to this day, but for the large part, most of their money comes from illegal, illicit criminal operations for the large part. So I hope that addresses that the best I can. That's kind of like the best way of breaking it down, because YouTube wouldn't like it if I got into like all of the nitty-gritty details of that. They probably wouldn't like that too much. So I really can't go deeper than just saying it's criminal activities that they're involved in for the greater part of things. But with that, I hope that does answer that live chat well. And a big thanks to Pagetto once again for sponsoring that live chat and supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing running and make it a reality every single day. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we now have 3 super chats in a row from none other than Gunfox, a channel legend. And thank you very much, Gunfox, for the 3 super chats. That is a 246. That is a $60 support in total, and we do appreciate that very much. And starting with the first one, he said Apollo 14th, January 31st through February 9th of 1971, was the 8th crewed mission in the United States Apollo program, and the 3rd to land on the moon, and the 1st to land in the lunar highlands, and it was the last of the H missions.
Very interesting. And here's a picture from Apollo 14 right there.
Now look at that. Those spacesuits right there are pretty cool looking in that one, I must admit.
Yeah, these go hard. I like the red stripe on the helmet. That actually is a really good look. But let's see some other pictures from Apollo 14. This is them during geological training. It looks like they're not really having a lot of fun with that. Looks like they kind of want to leave. But there's the Saturn V being rolled out.
The
Honestly,
Saturn V is the coolest.
Saturn V will always be the coolest. I don't care about the Starship or whatever else we've made in the meantime. The Saturn V always will be the rocket. But also, let's see here. What is this thing? The ALSEP. The Apollo Lunar Surface Experiments Package. Interesting. So what do they include? So it really seems as though it's just measuring conditions on the surface of the moon. That's about it. And seeing if there's any seismic activity, which, if I remember correctly, there is absolutely no seismic activity on the moon, because there's, no actual tectonic plates or anything like that to produce that. So the moon's pretty stable for the large part.
Also, speaking of which, apparently from what I've heard today, that China, I believe China has landed on the dark side of the moon before, and I think they're over there doing something right now that we really can't see what they're doing because we can't really monitor that side of the moon because it's not facing us. But I heard that they might be trying to mine the dark side of the moon. I don't know if you heard that.
I would doubt it because they probably don't have the abilities to get a large enough payload back to make it worthwhile, because it's not really like there's a lot of precious metals or anything for that matter that are even on the just exposed surface of the moon.
There is a helium-3 up there, which I think they're looking for, which is something that's being used in nuclear fusion research. It's like a very unique version of helium, and has interesting structure to it. I don't know all the details. I'm just a little bit above my pay grade, but I've heard that is on the dark side of the moon, and that China's trying to get some of it. And you don't need a whole bunch of payload space to be able to get that back.
Maybe not, but that's interesting. I wouldn't really know about that. And of course, man, here comes someone. It said it must be a slow news days if you're talking about mining the moon. The news is over. We talked about it for an hour and 10, 2 hours and 10 minutes. We talked about it forever. The news is over, man. This is the question segment. If you want to see the news, it's been going on for 2 hours. You just got to rewind to the first 13 minutes of the show, and it starts right there. But anyways. This is still very interesting. Oh, look, the Big Bertha rock.
Oh, the Big Bertha.
The third largest rock collected during the Apollo mission. And it was a rock. It's just a rock. It's not really special or anything. It's quite literally just a rock. For some reason, NASA treats them like they're special. But the reality is that if you threw this thing out near the street, not really a lot of people would pay much mind to the thing. It is quite truly just a rock. But anyways, it looks so weird, man, when they take pictures of them actually orbiting the moon and Earth. They honestly look surreal.
It really does look surreal. Also, by the way, just to jump into Gunfox's second one here, which is also about the similar situation. Gunfox said on the second one, Apollo 15, which was July 26th through August 7th of 1971, same year actually, was the 9th crewed mission in the Apollo program and the 4th moon landing, and it was the first J mission, and Apollo 15 saw the first use of the lunar roving vehicle. And also a question from the chat.
Oh, this is the mission that had the little moon rover in it. And then they had them for the rest of time, through the rest of the Apollo missions. That little thing's cool to me, and I think the tires were made by Goodyear, weren't they, Matthew?
I think so,
That is so cool. That pic goes hard, man. That is a really cool picture right there.
That does go hard. Also, is that a mountain or something in the distance?
I think it's kind of like a mountain. It's the side of a crater or something like that, I think.
That's interesting.
Man, that's actually that is such a cool picture, man. That is one of the cooler pictures right there. And apparently it was, let's see. Well, that's Mons Hadley, apparently, right there. Well, actually, no, sorry, correction. Wait, it says Irwin with the lunar roving vehicle, and then Mons Hadley is in the background. But where is he in the background? Because I don't see him in the background.
Bro's the ghost. He's not even there.
Ooh, bro made himself like Casper the Friendly Ghost. He's nowhere.
Mons Hadley is the alien that they didn't tell us about that they met.
Bro, he's the mountain back there. That's Mons Hadley. Oh man. But let's see here.
Who the hell even is that? Let's see.
Mons Hadley. Well, there's a picture of the crew up here somewhere. Here we go.
No, no, it's Mons Hadley, man. That's part of the moon, man. That's the range back there.
Oh, jeez, I sound
That's not a person.
stupid. I sound stupid now, people. Oh, man. Oh, dang it.
I was gonna say, it
Apparently,
doesn't sound like a person's name. Like, it sounds like something different.
so Mons Hadley is about 14,000 feet tall, meaning that that's actually as tall as Mount Fuji.
Oh, wow, that's massive, actually.
Yeah, that's actually pretty huge. It doesn't really come across in the picture that it's that big. But anyways, let's see here. Oh, look. This is a picture taken from the Apollo 15 mission of Earth.
Oh, that's very cool. That's very, very informative.
Yeah, look, you can see Florida right there.
Look, Florida, right there. The Florida man exists.
Hey, and then there's Brazil, and then they're like, the blue ball doesn't exist. It's like, yeah, that's what it actually looks like. It's mostly covered in clouds. It doesn't really pose good for pictures. So then they came up with the one. Let's see, the blue marble. Let's see, the blue marble picture. This is, there was some Photoshop involved in this picture. But this is a real picture of Earth. Like, that's exactly what it looks like from from outer space for the large part. Which is kind of wild to think that they saw that, and they saw it get smaller and smaller until it almost became a minuscule dot in the sky of the moon. That honestly would scare me, man. Like, thinking, man, I'm leaving the orbit of the Earth and going out to something else. Like, that honestly would kind of mess with me a bit.
Yeah, I wouldn't really be too wild about that personally, to be honest.
Let's see here. Wait a minute. Oh, bro, they have the Chevrolet Corvettes that were driven by Scott and Warden during Apollo 15.
Yeah, remember they gave them like Corvettes and stuff like that to make them seem more American.
Because they had to be cool. Because that's what we had to do. Where is a picture? Let's see. I don't think that is the Earth up there. I'm trying to see if I can find you all a picture that they would have taken. Huh. Yeah, let's see. Let me see. Let's see. Earth from the moon. There we go. That's how big the Earth looks from the moon.
Yeah, it's actually crazy to think that it's that size from the moon.
Yeah, no, and honestly, man, when you're on the moon, I bet you it looks absolutely tiny because that's pretty much zoomed in on it. So I bet you, I wonder if we can actually get a good picture of it zoomed out where it's just kind of in the background somewhere in one of these. Earth from the moon, Apollo. Let's see if we can just find one of those pictures. Oh, yeah, that is absolutely tiny. We're looking really. That almost looks like the moon to Earth, like in size.
Yeah, I could understand how people would go out to space and look out into the just like sheer emptiness and blackness and go berserk. I think they call it space madness. I'm not sure if that's a myth or is that something that's real or not, but I could see like really feeling like you're going to lose your sanity, like just going out and looking at everything just in the darkness like that. That's kind of a little bit off-putting, actually.
Man, that honestly, man, that would mess me up so badly to look out there and be like, my whole life is going to pretty much be on that small blue ball that I can only see kind of partly, and it's actually incredibly small, right there.
Yeah, that is crazy.
And when you really think about it, man, it's like throughout most of your life, you only travel maybe a couple of dozen miles at the farthest from your actual house every single day. So on that dot, in a small little area, that's where you live. And you don't really travel around the whole thing either.
Yeah, it's just a small world, honestly. A lot of small world problems too.
Yeah, I'd have to say. And also, we want to make sure to get on to the third one of Gunfox's Super Chats. So what do we got, Matthew?
And the third one from Gunfox says, the Apollo 16 mission, April 16 through 27 of 1972, the next year, was the 10th crewed mission in the United States Apollo space program, administered by NASA, and the fifth and penultimate to land on the moon, and it was the second of Apollo's J missions.
Interesting. I thank you for sharing all that about these three missions. Also, their patch goes hard. That actually is a pretty good one.
That does look pretty cool. Mattingly in the middle.
Apollo patches. What do the Apollo patches look like? Here we go. That's 7, 8. I think that's 9. That's 10. 11 I think is the hardest one. That one's great. Apollo 12 had the worst one in my opinion of like the Clipper ship shooting around the moon. I don't know why they picked that. Apollo 10 actually is a pretty cool looking one too.
That is pretty cool. I bet some of them, looks like some of them didn't get their name on the patch, but some of them did. I bet the ones felt like left out that didn't get that.
Dude, Apollo 11 didn't get their name on the patch because they're that damn iconic. Everyone in America can name off the crew of Apollo 11. It was Michael Collins, Neil Armstrong, and Buzz Aldrin. Like, you just learned that in school and you always remember it. So the other guys got their names on the patches because no one's really going to remember them unless you're like a space fanatic. But everyone knows the astronauts of Apollo 11. You knew them, right, Matthew? Like, I'm sure you knew them. We were taught that in school.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, of course. Everyone knows. But for Apollo 13 to fail, they actually had a pretty interesting looking one.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting right there.
Apollo 14 is meh. Apollo 15 looking like Amtrak out there for some reason. Apollo 16 was a pretty cool one. And then Apollo 17 for some reason is reminding me of the U.S. mail.
Yeah, it kind of does, actually.
Rain, sleet, or shine. We'll get your mail. Dude, do you know what they should have done then? They should have brought a letter to the moon just to say that post office service does extend to the moon. They should have done that so that way we could have said that for the rest of all time is that the USPS will deliver to the moon if the address is correctly written.
That the last one here is accurate because the space missions to the moon actually did serve as like the post office because they bring back all that alien technology and deliver it right back to the government every time. So it was like the USPS for the space.
Man, actually, that's where we would hold the peace treaty talks with the aliens was up there on the moon. We would land our diplomats up there in these Apollo missions, and they would spend a couple of days talking and figuring things out so that way the aliens don't come down here and destroy us all and take the women prisoner. We had to do this, folks, because otherwise the world would be a very different place. It'd be a very different place. I wouldn't be alive. We would all be vaporized. A terrible thing, really. A terrible reality. But also the launches are cool. Like they always the launches, dude, the Saturn V has an aura around it that just can't be beat. Like I don't think anything else will be as impressive as the Saturn V.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's very cool.
I would have to admit, but there are some pretty impressive things being made in the modern day. You know, it's actually greater in ability than the Saturn V by far, but the Saturn V has a certain look to it that's just really cool. Anyways, oh look, we've seen that one before, Matthew. That's actually in Huntsville.
Oh yeah, I think we have seen that. Yeah, I recognize it now.
Yeah, pretty cool. That's actually the capsule from the Apollo. Let's see, the Apollo 16 mission.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. But anyways, with that, I thank you once again for the massive support tonight, Gunfox, and sharing all of these interesting days and missions in space exploration history. And I hope that we were able to explore them well and also look at some interesting things there. And so with that, a big thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible and keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Raymond Clark, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Raymond, for the $20 support and also helping to keep us running. And Raymond said, thank you guys for the great work and really appreciate you.
Hey, and thank you for enjoying that great work, and thank you for appreciating this. That's very kind of you. And we always love to know the people that appreciate the show. We love to know it, and we love to have all of y'all here. We really do. The Lee Spring Army is the most amazing community on YouTube, and it shows that every single day. It's always showing out, and it's always impressive for that reason. And so a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address it the best I can, in my honest opinion, at least, that you have touched and humbled us today with your kind words, and we thank you massively for that. And so with that, a big thanks to you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Adam McLean, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Adam, for the 20, and we do appreciate that as well. And Adam said, one of my guys at work today said he thought he heard something about Russia lining up troops at the Finland border, and he's an astute guy, and what the hell was he clicking on?
Thank you for the support, and he is hearing about that. There is a ongoing troop buildup along the Finnish and Norwegian borders by the Russian army. So far, the President of the United States has told us that it's nothing to worry about, and we're not even going to respond to it because the Russians are trustworthy people that are not warmongers. But yeah, that's actually happening right now. So what he was reading about is actually correct. There has been a troop buildup there. And so I hope that does address that question for you and him the best I can. And I thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on rolling. And so with that, we are moving on to the next one. But before we do, though, I did see someone say something interesting. Let's see. Oh, hang on. A lot of people were talking about that whole post office on the moon thing. Honestly, I think that would have been pretty cool if they did that, because it would just be one of those goofy claims we could make that would then make someone else have to do something in response, because the whole space race, even if the Soviets didn't really want to put a man on the moon, is a pissing contest after all. So if we say that our postal service can actually deliver letters to the moon, then that means the Soviet Union would have had to have sent up something with a letter on board, so that way they could also say that they could do the same thing. It would have just been absolutely stupid to try and make them go through the effort of doing a thing like that. And so that's what I'm all for. But y'all would actually be interested to know that while America's space race interest was on the moon, the Soviet Union actually didn't care about the moon. They actually cared a lot about Venus instead. So most of their Apollo-style missions that happened in the Soviet Union actually were going to Venus, not the moon. Although none of those were manned, and all of them were just unmanned probes that were dropping down on the surface of Venus. And they actually learned a lot about Venus. Venus is a hellhole, quite truly. The surface is unsurvivable. All of the probes that they would drop would generally be destroyed within 30 minutes because of the crushing pressure of the atmosphere, and also the extreme heat. I think it was something like 900 degrees Fahrenheit on the surface of Venus, or something insane like that. It was incredibly hot, and it also looks like hell. Let me go see if I can find you all a picture of Venus, because it really does look like what you would think hell would look like. So let's see. Picture of Venus surface. Here we go. This is actually one of the real pictures that one of the Soviet probes took on the surface of Venus. And here's another one from the Venera 13.
Yeah, it looks uninhabitable right there. It looks terrible.
It looks like hell. It's absolutely crazy. I think this was the longest survived probe, and I think it only lasted for, I think, like 3 hours before just the bare elements of being on the surface destroyed it. Oh, it's 700 degrees Fahrenheit. It's still extremely hot, like beyond the boiling point of water. They actually say, based off of the research that they did here, that at one point Venus may have actually looked a lot like Earth, but something happened that deposited an insane amount of some sort of a... It's something that's currently in our atmosphere. It's sulfur oxide or something similar, and a massive amount of it was deposited into the atmosphere, which heated up the atmosphere rapidly, led to an evaporation of all water, and then that's what they see today, is that. So a little bit interesting with that, but Venus is hell. Like probably one of the worst planets to ever go to if you ever actually landed on it in the entirety of the solar system. Mars is fairly tame. Mars surface picture. Mars is pretty tame. Honestly, kind of looks like Earth, really, for the large part, which is a little bit weird. Because if you look at that, then honestly listen to Mojave or Death Valley.
Yeah, it kind of does, honestly.
Yeah, it kind of does, for real. Like Ongal. But still, an interesting one. I can't think of any other probes that have landed anywhere else. I don't think any have landed on Mercury. Let me go see. Are there any photos of the surface of Mercury? Oh, there is. Are they real? Well, that one's certainly real. I don't think there's actually... I can't tell if that's a rendering or real. I'm assuming it's a rendering, but something looks off about it. But pretty much just looks like the moon. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. That's, of course, in my expert space analysis. I'm a space expert, of course, as all of y'all know. I'm saying that really sarcastically because I don't really know anything about space. Anyways, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Right Geek Project, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Right Geek, for that $20 support and also helping to keep the channel running. And they said, is China helping Russia to continue the war to keep the U.S. busy with that war? And the U.S. has moved a lot of forces to bases in the eastern front of China. And do they plan on reducing forces in EU to fight China? And is the U.S. going to war with China?
Is the U.S. going to war with China? At least not for now. Are we planning on moving troops from Europe? We've heard that we are apparently considering that, but I'm not really sure if that's to divert them over to East Asia. We might just be removing them from Europe for the hell of it. But as far as China providing support to the Russians, we can't really tell how much support, if any support, they're actually providing, because a lot of that is kept really hush-hush if it is happening. So we are assuming that they are providing little to no support to the Russians, and there's also been very little proof, at least on the front lines of Ukraine, that there's been a lot of equipment ever provided by the Chinese Chinese that is actually in the form of a weapon or some sort of a implement of war. So I hope that answers all of those questions the best I can. And I thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep this thing running like we always do. And so big thanks to you once again, and I hope I answered all of your questions there. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Adam McLean once again, who puts in another $20 super chat. And thank you, Adam, for the second support of the night and for being a longtime channel legend. And he says, I don't think I've ever heard you guys talk about Kim Jong-un's sister, and she seems to be the power behind the throne and the next heir of the estate.
Let's see here. Let me go get his sister. And we're about to have the typical awooga like kind of comments here, but this is Kim Jong-un's sister right here. I forgot her name. But there's been a lot of it's Kim Yo Jong. So you know, she's from like Compton or something. But beyond that, a lot of people have said that she's actually the one who's really running North Korea, and Kim Jong-un's just kind of the figurehead. But I don't really know about that, because Kim Jong-un did have a lot of executions conducted at the beginning of his reign, and those were done by him directly. So I would doubt that running theory these days. But beyond that, I would have to say she's probably the next in line. Because I don't think Kim Jong-un has a son. So whoever the next leader of North Korea is going to be, it is most likely going to be a woman. And it'd probably be her, possibly, although I've never heard of a sibling taking control of the country, because Kim Jong-il was the son of Kim Il-sung, and Kim Jong-un is the son of Kim Jong-il. So if Kim Jong-un dies, and then it just diverts straight over to Kim Yo-jong, that actually wouldn't make a lot of sense. It would actually go to Kim Jong-un's first child. So whether that child, considering that he doesn't have any boys, it would have to go to his first child, which is a girl, because that's generally how the line of succession works in China. So I would have to generally say that I don't know. I think a lot of people are kind of like playing her up a lot, because it's one of the few people we've known of that's ever in the Kim family that isn't just one of the Kim guys that's running the country. So I think that's why a lot of people put stock behind her. But I would have to say I think that's most likely going to go to Kim Jong-un's daughter before it went to her, in my opinion at least. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And also, I see a lot of different statements coming in here. The last time we brought this up, like a lot of people were going, "Awooga!" Oh, you know, like, let's see, what were some people saying? Matthew, what were people saying back then?
I can't recall, just people oohing and ahhing, basically.
Yeah, I don't really know why. Like, I was like, oh, like this is like a violent psychopath right here. You know, like I generally don't look at violent psychopaths and go, ooh la la. Yeah, that's what people were doing, man. People were going, ooh la la, and I was like, I don't know why, because this is a violent psychopath, about as violent and psychopathic as her brother. So, you know, I was like, I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. And I thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jenna, last name Tolls, who also puts in a $20 donation. And thank you, Jenna, as well, for that support. I said Mongholio.
What does that mean?
I think that's a reference to Beavis and Butthead, I think.
The Great Cornholio.
So thank you for support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope that was worth it. And I thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because these folks like you help to make this thing possible and help us keep this thing running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Also, let's see here. I saw someone say, well, Kim Jong-un's daughter is like 13. That's true, but Kim Jong-un isn't dying tomorrow. He'll probably die in a couple of years. So by the time that Kim Jong-un dies from most likely diabetes, his daughter will be old enough to take control of the country, not his sister. So I'm generally thinking the sister is kind of just like a placeholder for now, but the power is going to go to the daughter of Kim Jong-un, because that would be the direct line of succession that has been laid out so far, because it's never sidestep in an existing generation. Like when Kim Il-sung died, it didn't go to his sister or his brother or anything. It went to his son, and then it went to Kim Jong-il's son, who is Kim Jong-un. So stopping that tradition and not going straight down that family line, and then just sidestepping sideways wouldn't really make too much sense. It's kind of like saying, you know, oh well, if Prince Philip dies, and I'm trying to think. let's see. If Prince Philip dies, then that means Princess Anne is going to become the Queen of Britain. It doesn't work that way. Like, yeah, he's like Princess Anne is a sister to King King Charles III. Like that's how their hereditary line works. But that doesn't mean that she's the next in line for the throne. The next person in line for the throne is the Prince of Wales or the Princess of Wales, which right now would be Prince William, who is the Prince of Wales currently. So that's kind of how that works. It's a direct line of succession down a specific line. So the child, the offspring of the current leader that takes the position, not their sisters or brothers. But with that, I hope that addresses that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Mountain of Entities, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Mountain, for that $20 support as well. And they said, if you were a Ukrainian general, how would you defeat the Russian forces strategically?
That the answer to that's a little bit tough, because my answer to that would be there really isn't a way at this point. I would go entirely on the defensive, and I would never conduct an offensive. Offensives are wasting manpower and resources that may not be able to be expended. I would just go on the defensive and try and wait it out at this point, because there is no way for a Ukrainian offensive to work. Like, not to sound like pessimistic, but that would be the reality of it. They don't have enough reserve manpower because, they've taken a decent amount of casualties as well. There's not enough reserve manpower. There's not enough available spare tanks that are expendable, or APCs, or artillery pieces, or shells to actually try and make a major offensive work. So what I would do is go on the defensive. It costs a lot less resources. It allows for the Ukrainians to bleed the Russians, and I would just try and wait it out. So really the way that it would be won, it wouldn't be won by a Ukrainian general at this point. It'd really be won by the president of Ukraine by going around and continuing to lobby other countries, or, ask these other countries to financially and militarily support the Ukrainians. So that way they could build up such a well-equipped and technologically advanced armed force compared to the Russians that, at least as far as just conducting a war of attrition, they'll be able to keep conducting it because the amount of manpower casualties that they're taking are going to be extremely low. That's how I would generally fight it at this point. Because much like the Russians are unable to conduct a successful offensive against the Ukrainians, it is the exact same on the Ukrainian side. There is no way for them to conduct a major successful offensive, because if there was, they would have already done it. And every single major offensive that was ever won or lost was in the first year of this war, and since then, there's never really been a major sweeping offensive victory anywhere. If there's ever been a victory, it's been a very bloody, long-fought one for minimal gains, like the Battle of Bakhmut, or the Battle of Severodonetsk and Lysychansk, or the Battle for Avdiivka, or the Battle of Pokrovsk, or the Battle of Chasiv Yar and Toretsk, or the Battle of Robotny, or the Battle of Sucha and the Kursk occupation, or really any other beyond that. I mean, really every major battle that's ever happened since the earlier part of 2023, they take massive losses, tens of thousands wounded and killed, and they gain maybe a couple of dozen square miles over about 8 months. So that's just kind of the reality, is that at this point, it's peer-on-peer forces fighting, and you just have to go defensive at that point to trick the other through their economy, or just through them throwing offensives endlessly at your line and just grinding them down to a nub. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. Not to sound pessimistic, but of course we try and do neutral war analysis here and speak about it objectively, and objectively that has been the situation for years in Ukraine at this point. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one goes to Dade Carnes, also known as Raid, who puts in a $15 donation. And thank you, Dade, as well, for the support. I do not see a comment attached, but we do appreciate that very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you for the support, because we do appreciate that much. We have to know. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to know, and we wouldn't be able to talk about stuff either. And so a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we just got a 10 once again from Adam McLean. And thank you very much, Adam. He said, democracies are much stronger than dictatorships, and you ain't got to be a history of major to know that.
You don't have to be. You don't have to. Honestly, you don't have to be a history major to know squat. Like, you really just have to read books. Reading books is the key to knowledge. And everyone always thinks it can't be that easy. Believe me, folks, I went through college for 4 years and got a major in a bachelor's of history. And yeah, it's that easy. It's literally just reading books. They just assign you the books to read in college, and then you have to read them and then conduct tests on them. But if you just read books, you can pretty much end up becoming an expert on anything quite easily, unless if it's something advanced like nuclear science or anything like that. That probably takes a little bit more. But at least with history, all you have to do is read. You can pretty much end up becoming an expert if you just read a lot on something. But I do think for the support Adam McLean, and democracies are much stronger than dictatorships. I will agree. They've always shown that time and time again. And so, a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And you know, folks, that's also something that's kind of a little bit crazy to me as well. On top of that, is people always act like there's some sort of like a deep hidden secret in knowing something. But the truth is that everything is written. So all you have to do is read. Like, people are like, oh, you know, like, military tactics are advanced. And, you know, it's like, yeah, they're advanced in actually implementing them physically. But as far as the actual overview of, like, what they're technically supposed to be, it is quite easy because all you have to do is read about it and then dedicate it to memory. And that's something that's so annoying to me because people will be like, oh, you know, like, this is something that I always deal with. And I'm always like, this is funny. Because someone will come in here and be like, oh, the enforcer doesn't know what he's talking about. He didn't serve in the army. And it's like, I don't have to serve in the army to have read a book that the army published about what they do to know what they do. Like that's because it's like that same book that I read, guess what? That guy who just enlisted for 4 years, or really that officer who's now commissioned, he also read that book too. And while he's having to put that into practice as his actual daily job, the basic theoreticals, or actually how that job is performed or conducted, it's written in that book. Because to be able to have them conduct their job efficiently, it had to be put to writing so that way everyone could read it, put it to memory, and then pretty much conduct the exact same processes of the job. And that's always something that's so funny to me, because the truth of it is that there are a lot of people out there who are retired military and former military that know a lot about their job and a lot about everyone else's job in the military. But on the flip side, there's also a lot of people who are from the military that don't know shit about hardly how to do their job, much less anyone else's. Hot Dog Man's a great example, because Hot Dog Man was in the Army for 5 years and then became a reservist for 5 years, or active reserve or something like that for 5 years. He reached the rank of E5, and whenever you go and watch that guy's channel, he doesn't know shit about how to actually fight a war, or what is involved in it, or what infantry tactics look like, or anything. The guy doesn't know anything. And yeah, he was in the Army for 5 years for the large part, but he didn't learn anything about it. It's like being in the military is not a determinant to being the key of all knowledge on land, sea, and air combat. Like, you can just read about it and probably know a lot more than your average private would know about the military, or your average sergeant, your E5s would know. And also on top of that, their jobs are very specialized in the military. So like if you have a sergeant that's specializing in tank repair, like a tank repair platoon or something like that, he's going to only be focused on tank repairs, and that's it. So he can tell you all the backwards and forwards way more than I could about tank repairs, but how does that play into the efficiency of that armored brigade that he's in on the front lines? He might be a little bit amiss to bring that up, or how that armored brigade will actually fight on the battlefield in support of an infantry brigade or something similar. So, you know, that's always something that's interesting to me, is that people don't really get that sometimes folks who are in there are in a specialized role, in a focalized view, and they don't know everything about everything else more than me. Some of them will, but not all of them. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Big Berg, who puts in a 10, and thank you very much, Big Berg, as well. They said, what has Kim Yo-Jong been doing?
I think that's Kim Yo-Jong. I don't really follow the North Korean like Kim family too much, so probably just chilling. Probably not eating. She looks like she's malnourished. So that's what I go with. Just malnourished and chilling, really. But with that, I thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible and keep it rolling. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Plant Lord, who puts in a 10, and big shout out to Plant Lord as well. They said, the question I have, the ship that sank, how many crew does the ship have, and did they drown on the sinking?
There would be really no crew on board for the large part when the vessel's being launched, because it's a pretty violent process even when it goes well. So I wouldn't know the exact complement of a Chongjin destroyer off the top of my head, but let me go pull it up and see if we can get that. So, actually, it appears that there's no public information about the complement, so we actually don't know how many people would be on board one of these vessels. So, with that in mind, I'd have to tell you I don't really know. And also, I can tell you, though, there was none of them on board. None of them were on board when that happened. But still, I thank you for supporting and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to none other than Dupper Bob, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Dupper, as well. He said, the solution is Ukraine joins the new Soviet Union with complete autonomy, and Russia withdraws all troops from Ukraine.
Maybe, maybe that's an interesting idea. I wouldn't know. I'll have to circle back and think on that one a little bit, because I've never heard that one before, and that's fresh. That's actually a fresh idea right there. But still, thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Questionable Authority, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Questionable Authority, for the support as well. They said, spin your map 180, and you see that the ship is on the south side of that dock area.
And we did that, actually, on that part of the stream. You probably threw that in right before we realized that. But I do thank you for the support and throwing that in, because that would have been a great help if we never found it. So with that, a huge thanks to you so much once again. Hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Burnaby Alex, who puts in a 5. And big shout out to Burnaby as well. He said, you could say the ship keeled over.
That's a good one. Man, someone get this man a medal. He's a comedian. that was actually a pretty good one. I gotta say, thank you for the support. Thank you for a good joke. That was a good dad joke right there, I will admit. And I gotta thank you for helping this channel to keep on running day in and day out. And so with that, thank you once again. And we are on to the next one.
And we have a $5 super chat from Adam McLean. And big shout out to Adam as well for the 5. He said, have you ever tasted Branston pickle? And if you haven't, it's more British than anything else in the world, and you owe it to yourself.
And I thank you for asking us about that. I haven't had one, but we will have to see about it someday. And I thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, Adam McLean, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we got a 5 from Jack Ray. And Jack says, HMS Zulu and HBS Nubian were half-ship wrecks and then spliced together and created the HMS Nubian in 1917, and surely the keels had been broken.
Interesting. Well, yeah, if they were broken in two, I'd have to assume that let's see here. Can we find anything about them? Oh, let's see here. It was laid down. The construction was slowed. It was commissioned. And then it got split in two somewhere. Let's see here. 1,500 mine was probably caused, although at the time it was thought the destroyer badly damaged, blah, blah, blah. Sailing from Dover to Dunkirk, struck a mine and exploded under the ship's engine room, and the ship's stern broke off and sunk. So yeah, that is correct. Actually, the keel was broken on both of those. So I guess that is proving that my statement was untrue. You actually can have a ship survive when the keel is broken. I had heard recently, though, that apparently when a keel is broken, the ship's doomed. Like it's just screwed for the large part. But apparently you actually can repair a keel, because this ship right here is an actual example, Jack. You are correct, of a vessel that is made up of two separate ships that actually broke their keels and then were pretty much just rewelded together. And apparently, actually, it actually worked. So thank you for clarifying that. I'm going to have to eat my foot on that one and say I was wrong. And apparently, that's proof of it right there, this ship. Not really an impressive one, though. Thing's a little small. How long was this thing? 280 feet. So it's actually only about 150 feet short of the North Korean destroyer.
Interesting.
It was a tribal class.
Very interesting.
Interesting indeed, I'll have to say. But let's see here. The tribal class. What was this? Was succeeded by the Beagle class. Right there. What a beagle. Let's see here. It was succeeded by the Acorn class. And then it was succeeded by the Acheron class. How many British destroyer models did they have? My God, there's like a 9 gazillion of them. We're still in World War I for the large part. Oh my God. Like, how many different classes of destroyers did they make in World War One? When does it end? When does it end? When does it end? When does this end? So it looks like we're almost out of World War One now. What the hell? Oh my god. Okay, so we finally made it in the 30s now. So that's what a British destroyer would look like in the 30s. I just got interest there. I had to find the answer to that. But anyways, with that, what in the world did they eventually turn into? So there's the tribal class, the one I know from World War II. And then it was succeeded by the J class, and then the L&M class, and then the O and P, and then the Q and R, and the S and T, and then the U and V, and then the WX. Oh, actually, the W and Z classes right here. Then it turned into a C class, and then a weapon class, and then a battle class. Oh, this is getting modern right here. A daring class. That's getting fairly modern. The late 40s, yeah. And then the destroyers started to split off. Let's see here. And then it was succeeded by the Type 42, and then it was succeeded by the Type 45, which is the one in service. It was succeeded by the Type 83. Oh, that's still in development. So this is the modern evolution of the British destroyer that we just saw, the HMS Zulu and Nubian. This is what it eventually turned into, that class. Pretty neat. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you once again for support, Jack Ray, and help with this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to LSA Sergeant Figment, who puts in a 2 and says, LSA, hit the like button. That's an order.
Hey, hit that like button. That is an order. And I got to thank you for the support, LSA Sergeant Figment. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, people wouldn't be hitting that like button. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to Blazant, who put in a 2, and also Redonk, who put in a 2 as well. And thank you both very much for that support. And Redonk said, thank you. They don't want that smoke.
And I thank you for the support, and nobody wants that smoke, I tell you. But beyond that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And with that, Plazanth and also Redonk are going to take us right into our live chat questions proper. And once again, big shout out to everybody for that super chat support and helping to keep the channel running. So it's now time to grab our Morse code decoders. And we add tonight Close Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Kevin J, Paul Schultz, Dave Millsaps, Herb Royal Fluffiness, Airball Grabber, Joni Dog, and Norm Pritchett. They said the Morse reads, can we even see the Russians not looking like a joke anymore? And are they bringing back the whole circus? LLT, LSA.
And that's the sound of money. And y'all got that dead on the nail. That was a Morse code message. Y'all got that correct. I got to congratulate the Lee Spring Army Signal Corps once again for getting that right time and time again, because y'all are always showing us, at least here in the LSA, that the LSA knows how to read Morse, which is very impressive. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into our live chat questions proper. And considering that we have a little bit of time tonight, we're going to be trying to get a good amount of them, rather than just 3, which is the bare minimum. And so with that, Matthew, we are on to the first one.
So this one goes to Rick, who said, will Putin retaliate with a barrage of ICBMs?
A barrage of ICBMs. Very, very bold, aren't we, to assume that they have more than one working ICBM? I would assume not a barrage of them. I would assume maybe one. But then they also aborted the last launch they tried of that, and so I'm thinking at this point they might not have a working one to shoot. So if they ever do a launch, it's just going to be a singular one instead of having multiples of them launch, or a decent amount of them could end up failing. And then also showing that the Russians have bad nuclear weapons maintenance. But with that, I hope that answers that well. And we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Azem, who said, do you think Russia will arm civilians to help shoot down the drones?
I would doubt it, because they can't trust those civilians, because what if they start using those guns against the Russian government? That would be scary to them. So the answer to that, absolutely not, for control purposes in Russia. Because then you're giving loose guns and ammunition into a population that probably has never wielded that kind of power before of their own destiny against the Russian government. And so with that, I hope that answers that well. And we also have another super chat here. So what do we got, Matthew? What do we got?
So this one goes to Jeremy Vahill, who puts in a 2 and says, could you take a look at Skycomish, Washington?
Yeah, let's take a look at Skycomish, Washington. Yes, Skycomish, Washington. That is on this interstate right here. Actually, this is a highway, Washington State Highway 2. We were down here on Interstate 90. But let's take a look at this Skycomish. Oh, wow, look at that. Oh, wow, look at that. Wow, dang.
Very nice. That's beauty right there.
Dude, that water is so clear. The brain-eating amoebas have never seen clear water in their lives. Oh! Wow. It's railroad country, Matthew.
Brains.
BNSF. That's the old paint jobs right there. Honestly, I don't like BNSF paint jobs, but the new one is an upgrade compared to the older ones.
Yeah, I don't like being this stuff. Like their paint's no good.
Yeah. Also, man, do you know what their motto is?
I don't.
Smiles for miles.
Man, they got smiles for miles. I'll tell you, they're working hard.
Man, like Union Pacific's, I think, is we can handle it. And then there's the smiles for miles. I'm like, I don't really get it. Like the railroads are just moving freight. Also, oh, that's railroad. Rails. Those are rails for the railroad. That's a better way to put it. And then GEVOs. Everyone knows those. There's a million of them. But wow, what a beautiful place. Very impressive. Look at that. And they even have a ram right there. A ram. That's not a Dodge Ram. That's a real ram, folks. The animal, not the other one. They have what appears to be an old station that is falling apart. And another GEVO. Everyone loves GEVOs. It's an ES-44. They actually don't label that on the side of BNSF. Another reason I don't like their company. But with that, I hope that addresses that somewhat well, because this place is nice, I will have to admit. Let's drop down on the street and get a street view. Ah, yes. I see you know your little towns well. Good one. And you, sir, are you ready to receive my toot sweet? How dare you, sir? Also, what is this? That's my kind of railroad.
Man, look at that. Got him riding the mini train.
Man, I didn't even know that was a thing that existed, but that's interesting. But still, thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that incredibly well, Jeremy. And with that, we are back into the live chat questions.
All right, so this one goes to AF Kaplan, who says, is there any way to prevent Russia from stealing the power from the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant?
Not really, because it's entirely within their control, so we could lodge a diplomatic complaint, and then they could just ignore it. So there really is no way to stop that, unfortunately. And so I hope that addresses that well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Canada is Sovereign, who said, what is the largest drone attack in terms of the numbers?
The largest drone attack that we've ever known and have been recorded that it actually did have this number was the Iranian drone attack against Israel, which comprised of approximately 400 kamikaze drones. We've never heard of one that's actually been recorded to be larger than that. We've heard rumors of ones that were larger, but we've never actually seen them, or actually been able to confirm it, because India claimed that Pakistan fired like 700 drones at them at a time, and we never got proof of that. And then today, Russia said that they shot down 485 Ukrainian drones, which means that if that number is true, Ukraine just launched the largest drone attack in human history, which just is not the case, because there was hardly that number in Russia. So that would be my answer. The largest one was that one between the Iran attacking Israel, and it had about 400 drones in it. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to JamFan WP Dad, who puts in a 2. And thank you very much, JamFan. He said, the UK did launch and lose a ship, the USS Daphne.
The USS Daphne? Is that like a part of the Scooby-Doo gang? Let's see here. Let's see. Well, it was raised, repaired, and put into service. So I think you're wrong. I'm just kidding, JamFan. Fan will put that. But whooping it. Maybe on the. I gotta thank you for the support, and I have to say you are correct. Actually, they did lose one. But it wasn't a military ship. It wasn't a military ship. It was. Let's see. Let's see here. It was a passenger cargo vessel, so it wasn't a military ship, so it wasn't a stain against the Royal Navy. But you are correct, this did actually happen in Britain before. So interesting to know that, because I thought it hadn't happened at all, but didn't happen there, but it still wasn't a military vessel. But beyond that, I thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next live chat question here is going to go to none other than Plexus Gaming, who said, I've been doing some thinking, and could the troops being moved by Russia to the Finnish simply be a bolstering of defenses because Finland joined NATO?
It probably can be, but at the same time, any kind of a troop buildup along the border has to be met with caution because we never know what that's actually going to end up being. So that's probably the more mundane answer to it, but at the same time, we kind of have to assume that it may be because the Russians are building up forces for a possible invasion as well, which could be a likelihood. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to David Tablet, who said, could it be the deployment is trying to deter for a possible coup attempt?
It could be. There could be a lot that was going on today. It's just that we don't really know the internal details. And considering that the last time that happened, it was during a coup attempt, there could have been a very quiet coup attempt that may have possibly been tried today and failed, and it just didn't really make any press or attention anywhere because it was quietly dealt with. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and I thank you once again for asking a great question. We are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have another super chat. This time it is from Irish Ed, who puts in a $5 donation, and big shout out to Ed for the support. He said, Irish Ed here, and does the enforcer know where the longest stone arch bridge is in the world?
Yes, it's the Rockville Bridge in Pennsylvania. Didn't you know? Didn't you know? Let me go pull it up. The Rockville Bridge in Pennsylvania. Let's see here. Here it is. Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, known for its natural beauty. And there's the bridge. Right there.
That's the bridge. Look at that.
Man, look at that. Heritage units galore. A nickel plate road and a Lehigh Valley. Wow. That's really cool. Anyways, it's this bridge. And you're probably thinking, Irish Head, wow, the enforcer knows so much. How did he know this information? He truly has to be some sort of a savant or a genius. The answer is that when I saw that super chat and I just got done answering that live chat, I immediately Googled that to find the answer because I wanted to make sure that we got to it quick-like. But, oh, look, it's a slug. What kind of slug? It's an RP-08. That looks like an old Alco slug, really, because it's got these weird little divots on the ends. But I could be wrong. But that is a really cool bridge, though. I like the look of it. It's got a nice... Stone bridges like that have a really nice aesthetic.
I agree with that. I agree with that 100%.
Also, I like how Pennsylvania still uses almost like the British seal, like the British royal seal for their state. That's a neat one. And they also have the Keystone symbol as a symbol for their state. It's a nice bridge, though. A cool bridge. And huge at that as well. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, Irish Ed, and I thank you massively once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't have been able to make this thing a reality, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running right here, right now. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so we have one more super chat, and this one goes to Samami. I think so, yeah. And they put in a $5 donation, and thank you very much for the support, by the way. And they said, I'm behind in the stream, but my last name is Varga, which is Hungarian for shoemaker, and I love what you guys do, and thanks.
Hey, that's really cool, actually. Like, I never thought about that while we were talking about that, is that there's pretty much the same thing that's happening in every single language around the world. And that's actually pretty neat to hear, that your last name means shoemaker in Hungarian. That's pretty cool, actually. So I guess at some point, someone in your family, a long, long time ago, was a cobbler. But beyond that, and you know, that's always interesting to me how we have, like, these desserts here in the South called cobblers, because I'm like, were these, like, the desserts shoemakers made? Like, I don't really know where that comes from. But beyond that, I thank you for the support, and I thank you for sharing that, and thank you for enjoying what we do, because we try and make it interesting. I'm glad that you found that really interesting talk, and even chipped in what your last name means. That's pretty cool right there. And so with that, a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are going to be moving on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Stantro Sinro, who says, hi, Matt. Hello, Stantro. He said, did they ramp up forces because of the assassination attempt on Putin?
I didn't hear about an attempted assassination today, so I would doubt it for that reason, because I didn't hear about it. Maybe we just missed it, but we usually not miss information like that. That would be big ticket news. But maybe we missed something like that. I would say probably not, though. It probably had something to do with something else, at least from what I can tell. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one is going to go to AR Dan, who said, do you know the Romanians officially approved the law to shoot down Russian drones entering their airspace?
Oh, that's good for them. I hope that they actually follow through and shoot down those drones because they pose a significant threat to all the Romanian folks that have been living in the Danube River Delta area for quite some time. And so with that, I thank you for the support. I thank you for sharing that. I actually didn't hear about that. And that's great news. And with that, we are going to get this last super chat here before we get on into the final question of the night.
All right, so our last super chat goes to Gregory C, who puts in a generous $20 donation. And thank you, Gregory, as well, for supporting the channel and also helping to keep it ticking along. And Gregory said, awesome show, man, and thank you for that. He said, and take one from the chat.
And I got to thank you for the support, Gregory C. Thank you for enjoying the awesome show. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never die. Folks like you make it possible for us to say that the LCA will never die, because we're able to continue to work 7 days a week for the large part, as many hours as we can each and every day, about 60 to 70 hours a week, both to make sure that this channel keeps on running. It's folks like you who have made this thing possible and are going to be bringing us on into the final question of the night, because your live chat question is going to be the final question of the night. And so, who's the lucky last person to put in the lucky last question of the night in honor of Gregory C?
All right, and that viewer is going to be, guess who? Paul Schultz, who said, did you see that the recent Russian claim that the USSR still exists and that the special military operation is therefore an internal matter?
Oh my God, yeah, I did. I didn't mention that because it was so stupid. I just was like, I'm not even going to mention that. But I did see that. They were like, I don't know why a lot of people are outraged in the world. Technically, legally, the Soviet Union never ceased to exist, so this is a domestic matter. I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, yes, the Soviet Union legally ceased to exist, like in every way. Like every single country that exists now was a former Soviet republic and legally seceded from the Soviet Union, and their secession was accepted by the Soviet government. And Russia was the last, well, actually Kazakhstan was the last one to secede from the Soviet Union, and they notified nobody because you were supposed to notify the Soviet, I think it was the Soviet Central Committee in Moscow if you were leaving, and of course the Russians had already left, so there was no one left, so they just, left on their own pretty much for the large part. But yeah, that was something that was absolutely insane to me. I did hear about it, and it was so, I actually saw the actual statement that they made, but it was so stupid, I just completely ignored it. Because also another reason why I ignored it, it wasn't Sergei Lavrov saying it, who's the foreign minister, or Putin. It was a junior minister saying it. So I was like, he doesn't really hold that much weight to cover that anyways. But I was like, that is crazy that he said that. That was just one of the dumbest things I had ever heard. Someone should have clipped that and canceled him for it. But beyond that, I hope that addresses that the best I can. Great question, by the way, to end this off on. And with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to have all of you all here tonight with Matthew and me. We reached a peak viewership tonight of 10,000 live viewers, and we had 72,000 people watch this stream since it started. I got to thank you all so much once again for watching tonight, and if you have enjoyed, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that like button, because we're always here every single day except for Mondays at the same time every night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, covering the last 24 hours of news from around the world. And so we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of news from around the world. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And with that, folks, thank you all, like the Enforcer said, for joining us once again tonight on this night of 1,184 days of news. And be sure to join us again tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern for the next night of streaming, and also midday tomorrow as well for a short war video if there is enough news to cover, and that will be the Enforcer's Day. So we will see you all then, and thank you all once again for joining us. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Herum Slava, get some rest, and good night.